Chapter 51. Therefore, although there was still deep hostility and vigilance between each other, everyone tacitly chose to stop. They looked around vigilantly, fearing that they would be hurt by a sudden attack. Lin Feng witnessed all this with a cold expression on his face. Is this the end? No, I haven't seen enough. As he spoke, Lin Feng took out a stink smoke bomb from the space and held it tightly in his hand. He opened the door and walked towards the crowd. His appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. They all knew that Lin Feng came out at this time, definitely wanting to snatch the corpse. Sure enough, Lin Feng approached step by step, but unexpectedly, he stopped about 10 meters away from them. At this moment, a figure slowly walked out from the bustling crowd, which surprised Lin Feng very much. It was Song Wei. Song Wei, a retired soldier, now works as a security guard in the community. He is an upright person and is deeply respected by everyone. However, at this moment, he was covered in blood, his clothes were tattered, and he was holding a piece of unrecognizable flesh and blood in his arms. It was obvious that he had paid a huge price in this struggle. He looked straight at Lin Feng, his eyes gleaming with determination and his tone sounding a little doubtful. Mr. Lin, I know you have a large amount of supplies stored at home, but do you also want to snatch these corpses? Lin Feng looked back at Song Wei coldly, with a mocking smile on his face. What? You want to be my enemy? Song Wei quickly shook his head, his tone revealing sincerity and helplessness. No, Mr. Lin, I don't mean that. If you need it, I can give you some. This answer surprised Lin Feng. He did not expect that at such a life and death moment, Song Wei would be willing to share with him the corpse that he had snatched at the risk of his life. Lin Feng looked at Song Wei deeply and said slowly. You can go now, but no one else is allowed to move. As soon as the words fell, curses broke out from the crowd. Damn it, who do you think you are? If you don't let me go, I won't dare to leave. You really can show off here. Don't think you are so great just because you beat Biozi. FK it, I'm not leaving. I'm standing here. Come over here if you have the guts. However, no one saw clearly how Lin Feng took out a pistol from space in an instant. He held the pitch-black muzzle of a gun and glanced at everyone coldly. Faced with this sudden threat, everyone shut their mouths instantly and dared not act rashly again. They have realized that the 4 corpses are most likely Lin Feng's masterpiece. Although he was alone with only a gun, his cold aura and resolute eyes were enough to scare everyone. Lin Feng waved the gun at Song Wei, signaling him to leave. Song Wei nodded gratefully, turned around and left this dangerous place. The rest of the people all stared at Lin Feng blankly, not knowing what he would do next. At this moment, Lin Feng raised his left hand, and the smoke bomb in his hand was like a bright meteor, cutting through the air in an elegant arc and accurately falling into the crowd. Pa! After a crisp sound, an indescribable stench accompanied by thick smoke instantly rose up, like an invisible giant hand, instantly covering everyone. What the hell is this? Why does it stink so bad? Who the hell pulled their pants pockets? The smell is really irritating. Everyone was frightened by the sudden stench and smoke and fled in all directions, trying to escape the suffocating and smelly smoke. However, in the panic, they bumped into each other and fell to the ground. Some people accidentally hurt themselves when they fell, while others lost the bodies they had just snatched away. The scene was in chaos. However, Lin Feng was like a bystander. He always stood in the distance and observed everything calmly. Whenever he saw someone trying to escape from the smoke, he would throw another smoke bomb without hesitation to continue blocking their way. He played like this for more than an hour, as if he was enjoying the chaos he had directed. Only when all the smoke bombs in his hand were used up did he stop reluctantly and return home. Song Wei hid quietly in the corner, watching Lin Feng walk into the house. He turned and left only when his figure completely disappeared from his sight. However, his destination was not the security room where he lived, but the home of Zhang Limei, a mother in the community. Zhang Limei was sitting on the sofa at this moment, unbuttoning her clothes, preparing to feed her child. Her face was filled with worry and helplessness, the child was crying loudly due to hunger, and her heart was filled with guilt and helplessness. As soon as Song Wei entered the room, he saw Zhang Limei's snow-white breasts. He couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Forcefully suppress the throbbing in your heart. He knew very well that this was not the time to be sentimental, so he asked quickly. How is it? Is there any milk? Zhang Limei looked down at the child in her arms, her voice choked with sobs. I haven't eaten for several days, how can I have milk? This is not a solution, Xiao Bao is almost fainting from hunger. Song Wei felt nervous when he heard this. He said hurriedly. Don't worry, I brought some food back. Zhang Limei raised her head and saw Song Wei covered in blood, a trace of fear flashed in her eyes. But when she saw the meat in Song Wei's hand, the horror in her eyes was quickly replaced by greed. She said urgently. Quick, go and boil some hot water to cook the meat. Song Wei nodded and turned to boil water. Zhang Limei stared at the piece of meat, with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. She knew that this piece of meat might save her child's life. No one expected that in this chaotic moment, Zhang Limei could actually find Song Wei to take over. This woman has a unique vision and was able to accurately pick out Song Wei, a potential stock, from among many bachelors. Maybe in the eyes of others, Song Wei is just an ordinary security guard, but in Zhang Limei's eyes, he is her life-saving straw. Although Zhang Limei is nearly 30 years old, she is still pretty. In addition, her figure has become fuller after giving birth, which adds a bit of mature feminine charm. As a bachelor, Song Wei naturally finds it hard to resist the temptation of such a mature woman. It was indeed Zhang Limei's ability that she was able to hook up with Song Wei and get him to help raise the child. In this chaotic world, it is not easy to find someone to rely on. And Song Wei may be her savior in this troubled times. Zhang Limei seemed to be really lucky, as she happened to catch the power supply. Time. Chapter 52. Song Wei used this rare electricity to quickly boil a pot of hot water. He carefully cut the meat into thin slices, blanched it several times to make sure it was cooked through, and then handed it to Zhang Limei. And he could only choose to eat the meat slices raw, which still had a raw taste. The long-lost feeling of fullness brought a satisfied smile to Zhang Limei's face, and she then remembered to ask where the meat came from. She looked at Song Wei with a bit of curiosity and confusion in her eyes. Song Wei, the supermarket outside has already closed. Where did you get such fresh meat? Also, why do you have so much blood on you? Did you steal it from someone else? However, Zhang Limei didn't seem to care too much about whether Song Wei was injured. Her focus was all on the piece of meat. This problem put Song Wei in a dilemma. He knew that if he told Zhang Limei the truth, she might not be able to accept it. After all, what she just ate was human flesh. Song Wei is an honest man and he is not good at lying. He answered hesitantly. Meat, they. Zhang Limei, however, was an impatient person. Seeing that Song Wei couldn't explain anything for a long time, she couldn't help feeling a little impatient. Hey, tell me, what's going on with this meat? And what's going on with the blood on your body? Song Wei had no choice but to take out his cell phone. He found the photos of the 4 bodies and said. It was their meat. There were too many people trying to grab the meat, so a fierce battle broke out. When Zhang Limei learned the source of the meat, her stomach immediately turned upside down. She tried hard to hold back her vomiting, not for anything else, but for the sake of her child. She didn't get enough nutritional supplements and didn't have enough milk to feed her baby. Song Wei hurriedly comforted Zhang Limei, and when she calmed down, Song Yk explained to her the process of the robbery and the appearance of Lin Feng. After listening to Song Wei's story, Zhang Limei's eyes lit up and said. It seems that Lin Feng has a good impression of you. He has so many supplies stored at home. Maybe he will help you. Song Wei understood that Zhang Limei wanted him to seek Lin Feng's help. But he was an upright person and had never asked anyone for help, let alone in this end times. Food is life, otherwise there wouldn't have been such a brutal fight in the underground parking lot just now. Song Wei looked embarrassed and said. This is not good. Besides, we still have food and can hold on for a while. Zhang Limei was about to speak when she suddenly felt her chest swelling. A look of joy appeared on her face, she knew that she had milk, and she quickly unbuttoned her clothes and began to feed the baby. Song Wei sat aside, staring at the erotic scene, wishing he could replace the child in Zhang Limei's arms with himself. Zhang Limei also saw what Song Wei was thinking, smiled coquettishly and said. Want to eat? Song Wei nodded mechanically, sucked his saliva, and said. Zhang Limei said, strike while the iron is hot. If you want to eat, do as I say. One night passed and the doomsday entered the 8th day. At 8 o'clock in the morning, it was still foggy and dark outside, as if shrouded in thick haze. The snow was still falling, although it was much lighter and less dense than the previous few days. But the snow on the ground has accumulated to at least 2 meters thick, like white hills, completely blocking people's travel routes. There has been no news of rescue. This has been the 8th day, and people's patience seems to have been exhausted by the endless wait. As time went by, everyone became more and more anxious, with fear and anxiety growing wildly in their hearts like weeds. Panic spread among the crowd, like a time bomb that could explode at any time. Lin Feng brought Orlan to the underground parking lot. It was empty and so quiet that the only sound he could hear was his own breathing. It seems that what happened yesterday had such a huge impact on everyone that no one dared to leave the house easily for fear of encountering any unexpected events. Lin Feng walked around the parking lot and was about to go home when suddenly, Song Wei came towards him. His face was pale, and the dark circles under his eyes showed that he was tired from not getting enough rest. Without waiting for Song Wei to speak, Lin Feng spoke directly. You were waiting for me here on purpose, right? During this special period, Lin Feng was very cautious. He had already discovered Song Wei hiding in the corner. And his mind was always on the pistol in the space. If Song Wei makes any unusual move, he will kill him immediately. Song Wei walked to a place 5 meters away from Lin Feng, stopped, and said sincerely. Mr. Lin, thank you very much for what you did yesterday. Song Wei knew that if Lin Feng had not let him off yesterday, he probably couldn't even take the meat away, let alone walk out of the chaotic scene alive. He will always remember this kindness. Lin Feng waved his hand and said lightly. It's nothing, but you shouldn't be with that group of people. Lin Feng didn't know that Song Wei was seduced by Zhang Limei, so he didn't know why Song Wei was fighting with those people for the corpse. But he could feel the uneasiness and contradiction emanating from Song Wei. Song Wei understood what Lin Feng meant. He lowered his head and spoke after a moment of silence. I know I was wrong. I violated my oath and the trust of the organization. But I also have my own difficulties. Lin Feng looked at Song Wei, with a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. Tell me, what is your difficulty? Then, Song Wei took a deep breath and mustered up the courage to tell the story of how he and Zhang Limei got together. After listening to Song Wei's narration, he nodded slightly, with a hint of understanding in his eyes. The end of the world is coming, and I don't know how many days I can live. I can only live in these last moments. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your last moments. So that's how it is, congratulations. When Song Wei heard Lin Feng's blessing, an awkward smile appeared on his face. He scratched his head and said embarrassedly. There's nothing to congratulate. We're just living together. You know my situation. My salary is not high and I'm not outstanding. If it weren't for this snowstorm, no woman would be willing to be with me. Lin Feng looked at Song Wei and couldn't help feeling deeply moved. He knew Song Wei's situation. A monthly salary of 3,000 yuan was indeed not enough to attract many women's attention. However, although Zhang Limei's appearance had a certain purpose, it at least gave Song Wei a home. Lin Feng sighed softly and then said. Song Wei, you came to see me not just to say thank you, right? Since Song Wei told Lin Feng about what happened between him and Zhang Limei, Lin Feng guessed it. It must be Zhang Limei who instigated Song Wei to come find him. Chapter 53. When Song Wei heard this, a guilty look appeared on his face. He was silent for a while, then he mustered up the courage to speak. Mr. Lin, you are right. It was Zhang Limei who asked me to come to you. She asked me to borrow some food from you before she would sleep with me. When Lin Feng heard this, he understood. He showed a matter-of-fact expression and said lightly. It's nothing, just food. I have some at home, you can take it. Lin Feng's voice sounded relaxed, as if he was discussing a trivial matter. However, the key words some in his words meant that Lin Feng's food reserves were not actually sufficient. It was at this doomsday moment of scarcity and bitter cold, Lin Feng chose to share his food with you, Song Wei, without hesitation. You savored this friendship, Lin Feng's righteousness and his concern for you. How can such a favor be repaid so easily? Song Wei was deeply moved by Lin Feng's actions and was so excited that he was speechless for a long time. He said gratefully with a trembling voice. This, Mr. Lin, how can I repay your kindness? Lin Feng smiled and waved his hand and said. Xiao Song, you are being too polite. We have known each other for many years and have become as close as brothers. In my eyes, your business is my business. So, stop talking about repaying me and come over here and get some food. However, Lin Feng's generous help to Song Wei was not out of simple sympathy and pity. He had more far-reaching plans. After all, this security guard is very skilled. He has been trained in the military camp for 5 years and is agile and quick to react. It can play a vital role in special circumstances, or at worst can be used to block bullets. Afterwards, Song Wei returned to Zhang Limei's home happily with a box of instant noodles. As for meat and vegetables, Lin Feng would never give them. Lin Feng only cares about Song Wei's life or death. As for Zhang Limei and the child, what does it have to do with him? However, the development of things was beyond Lin Feng's expectations. Not long after, the doorbell suddenly rang. He walked to the surveillance camera and frowned. A woman holding a child was standing outside the door. Although she was wrapped tightly, Lin Feng recognized her as Zhang Limei at a glance. Why is she here? Although he had some feelings for Song Wei, he didn't have much friendship with Zhang Limei. He used to see her often in the neighborhood. Although she was not stunningly beautiful, she still had a graceful figure. Especially after giving birth, there is a unique milky fragrance emanating from the body that is unforgettable. Lin Feng walked to the door but did not open it. He shouted knowingly. Who is this? What do you want to talk to me about? Zhang Limei heard the voice and answered hurriedly. Mr. Lin, you are at home. I am Zhang Limei. Song Wei should have told you about my relationship with him. Lin Feng replied indifferently. It's you. Didn't I already give the food to Song Wei? Why are you looking for me? Zhang Limei knew that Lin Feng generously gave Song Wei a box of instant noodles. But everyone in the community knows that Lin Feng's family has fresh vegetables and meat. This made her feel extremely unbalanced, so she came to the door with her child. Mr. Lin, thank you very much for giving us a box of instant noodles. But look at the baby in my arms. He is still nursing. If I don't have enough nutrition, I won't have milk. Then the baby will starve to death. Can you please give me some nutritious food since he is still young? Greed is insatiable. Zhang Limei is really taking advantage of others and being shameless. Sister Zhang, don't you know what's going on? I'm very kind of you to give you a box of instant noodles. People need to know how to be satisfied. Zhang Limei was speechless after hearing Lin Feng's words, but she was still unwilling to give in. She took a deep breath and spoke with courage. Mr. Lin, please, I really have no other choice. As long as you can give me some nutritious food, I am willing to do anything to repay you. After saying that, Zhang Limei unbuttoned her shirt with one hand. Although there was a layer of clothes underneath, her towering chest could still be clearly seen. Zhang Limei's figure was already plump, and after giving birth she became even plumper. Moreover, when she came, Zhang Limei was already prepared to sacrifice herself, which was why she did not let Song Wei come with her. This scene also reminded Lin Feng of the milky scent of Zhang Limei. It has to be said that this is a fatal temptation for any man. If it were in the past, Lin Feng might have agreed to Zhang Limei's request without hesitation. To him, a little food means nothing. It is totally worth it to exchange this little food for a woman with a strong milky fragrance. However, Zhang Limei is now with Song Wei, which makes Lin Feng feel somewhat conflicted and hesitant. Lin Feng stood at the door, silent, his heart was experiencing a fierce struggle. Zhang Limei outside the door seemed to have noticed Lin Feng's concerns. She mustered up her courage again and spoke. Mr. Lin, please rest assured, Song Wei, he hasn't touched me yet. There was a hint of firmness and expectation in her voice, as if she hoped that these words could dispel Lin Feng's concerns. I have to admit that Zhang Limei is indeed meticulous. She keenly captured Lin Feng's hesitation and tried to dispel his concerns in this way. To die under the peony flowers is to be a romantic ghost. Lin Feng hardened his heart and finally opened the door. As soon as she entered the door, Zhang Limei felt the comfortable warmth of Lin Feng's home. Compared to the cold outside, it feels like another world in here. The temperature difference made her feel a little hot and uncomfortable, so she hurriedly opened the quilt wrapped around the child and took off her clothes. She was left with only her underwear, and she showed it in front of Lin Feng openly. She is a smart woman who knows how to make a man happy. Now that the decision has been made, just face it openly. She hopes to use her body in exchange for Lin Feng's help so that the child can get better nutrition. In an instant, the strong aroma of milk was like a gentle breeze, gently brushing across Lin Feng's nose, making him sniff involuntarily. The fragrance is so tempting, as if it has some kind of magic that makes people intoxicated. Seeing this, Zhang Limei raised her lips to a charming smile. She looked at Lin Feng with anticipation in her eyes. She said softly. How is it? Does this milky aroma smell good? As long as you give me some nutritious food, I can be yours anytime. While speaking, Zhang Limei deliberately straightened her proud breasts, as if showing her charm to Lin Feng. Her actions were full of temptation and irresistible. The end of the world is so cruel. For a bite to eat, people can give up everything, including dignity, family members and lovers. Chapter 54. After the battle, the air was filled with smoke and exhaustion. Lin Feng walked up to Zhang Limei, holding a few boxes of instant canned food. Although these cans were just simple food, but at a time like this, they are especially precious. This is also because Zhang Limei is too purposeful, so Lin Feng did not treat her like other women. Zhang Limei took the can, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Lin, if you need anything, you can contact me at any time. Lin Feng admitted that Zhang Limei was crazier than any other woman he had ever met before. Could it be because she had given birth to a child? After seeing Zhang Limei off, Lin Feng felt as if all the energy in his body had been drained. Take out a table of sumptuous food from the space storage. The oysters are tender and juicy, the kidneys are plump and delicious, the bull whips are nourishing and healthy, and the leeks are green and attractive. He poured himself another glass of deer blood wine, which had a mellow aroma and a hint of warmth. In such an environment of the end of the world, Lin Feng knew very well that the body was the capital of revolution. Although fighting on different women every day is exciting and challenging, the issue of maintenance cannot be ignored. He must always be in the best condition to continue fighting. This kind of life is really great, it is so much better than before the end of the world. However, in this satisfaction and comfort, he also felt a little lonely. With only a loyal dog by his side, the empty room seemed to be missing something. How about finding a woman to accompany me? This thought flashed through Lin Feng's mind, but he immediately gave it up. With such a good opportunity, how can we give up the whole forest for a tree? He knew very well that in the end times, survival was the most important thing, and women were just the spice of life. After eating and drinking, Lin Feng came to the sofa and picked up the mobile phone on the coffee table. Hundreds of messages have been sent in the owner group. I was so busy savoring the taste of my nanny that I even forgot to check my phone. He clicked on the message and began to browse through it one by one. The first message revealed that the hidden dangers left over from the thrilling fight in the parking lot were gradually emerging. My wound seems to be infected. That neighbor has some anti-inflammatory medicine at home. Can you give me some? I was stabbed and bleeding. Is there any neighbor here who knows medicine? Can you help me bandage the wound? Neighbors, it's great that you still have the energy to send messages. My husband was stabbed 3 times and is now in a coma. His condition is very critical. I beg you, can you help him first? I am willing to pay any price and will be grateful. The messages for help fell on deaf ears, with no one responding. In this end times of material scarcity, medicine is even more scarce than food. People are struggling for their own survival. Who would be willing to easily give drugs that may affect their life or death to others? However, the silence did not last long. Aunt Zhao, who had not spoken for a long time, suddenly tagged Sun Ziyi in the group and sent a message. Miss Sun, you are the only doctor in our community. You should step up and help everyone solve the problem at this time. After all, this concerns everyone's life. Saving the dying and healing the wounded is your duty as a doctor. How can you bear to watch everyone sacrifice in vain? Aunt Zhao's words immediately caused an uproar in the group and made everyone remember the existence of Dr. Sun Ziyi. Dr. Sun, I'm Xiao Li from Building 6. Do you remember me? My mother is your third aunt's second cousin. We are relatives. You have to give me priority in treatment. Dr. Sun, my husband's injury is the most serious. He is already unconscious. You can't be partial. You must save him first. Yes, it depends on the severity of the injury. I was stabbed twice and the wounds are still bleeding, so I'm ranked second. Sun Ziyi looked at the anxious messages in the group with a frown on her face. As a doctor, she deeply desires to treat all the injured. However, in this special period, she would undoubtedly face great danger if she went out alone as a woman. This put her in a dilemma. At this moment, Lin Feng's figure flashed through her mind. She knew that Lin Feng would definitely be able to give her good advice. Unconsciously, she had developed a deep dependence on Lin Feng. However, when she was about to call Lin Feng, she hesitated. She realized that she couldn't always rely on others. What if Lin Feng has something and cannot respond to her in time? She still has to learn to face and solve problems on her own. So she took a deep breath and decided to find a solution herself. Lin Feng also saw the neighbors making things difficult for Sun Ziyi, but he said nothing. He just wanted to see what Sun Ziyi would do. Time seems to slow down at this moment. Sun Ziyi took a deep breath and finally sent a message. As a doctor, I know that my duty is to save lives, but at the same time, I must also consider my own safety. I hope everyone can understand my decision. Therefore, I have decided to only receive seriously ill patients at a time, and family members are not allowed to accompany them. If anyone needs treatment, please line up in front of my door in order, and I will treat everyone one by one. But please understand that this is not a charity, so please be sure to prepare the consultation fee. Although the neighbors were somewhat dissatisfied, they could understand Sun Ziyi's difficulties. After all, in this special period, no one can guarantee their own safety. The so-called medical fee of Sun Ziyi was actually food, which was her last resort to make a living. However, not everyone is willing to abide by Sun Ziyi's rules. The family of the comatose patient immediately tagged Sun Ziyi in the group chat. Dr. Sun, you are really wrong to do this. My husband is seriously injured and can't come here on his own. You can't just let him give up like this, right? How about you send someone to pick him up? Sun Ziyi looked at the message and felt helpless. She knows she can't take good care of everyone, but she tries her best to balance various relationships. However, she had no time to respond to the family member's complaint at this moment because someone had already knocked on her door. Lin Feng absolutely didn't want anything to happen to Sun Ziyi, not because he coveted her beauty, but because she was a doctor. His arrival surprised Sun Ziyi a little, but she still hurriedly welcomed Lin Feng in. She looked at Lin Feng and asked with some confusion. Why are you here? Lin Feng smiled slightly and said. You are so stupid. At this time, why do you still care about the lives of those people? Aren't you afraid of danger? After hearing Lin Feng's words, Sun Ziyi felt a warm feeling in her heart. Chapter 55. She lowered her head, clenched her hands together, and spoke with a trembling voice. I'm a doctor, this is what I should do. Lin Feng patted Sun Ziyi's shoulder gently and spoke in a firm tone. Well, just focus on treating them. I'll be on guard upstairs. If there's anything unusual or dangerous, just shout for help and I'll come down to save you right away. Sun Ziyi looked at Lin Feng gratefully, tears glistening in her eyes. Well, thank you. I feel at ease with you around. As soon as Lin Feng walked upstairs, there was a knock on the door. Sun Ziyi saw a middle-aged woman through the peephole. He was supporting a middle-aged man covered in blood, probably the man who said in the group that he was stabbed twice. After confirming that there were only 2 people outside the door, Sun Ziyi quickly opened the door and helped the man in. The middle-aged woman put the bag of food in her hand at the door and said. Dr. Sun, thank you for your help. This is our consultation fee. Please make sure to treat my husband well. Sun Ziyi said. Don't worry, I'll do my best. After saying that, he closed the door. After helping the man into the house, Sun Ziyi had already prepared a thick carpet and a first aid kit. Due to the low temperature, the man could not take off all his clothes, so Sun Ziyi asked the man. Where is your wound? The man replied with a weak breath. The abdomen and left shoulder were both stabbed. Sun Ziyi did not ask how he was injured because she heard a fierce fight in the underground parking lot, but she did not dare to go out to check. After confirming the wound, Sun Ziyi took out a pair of scissors and cut open the man's clothes at the shoulder. A 10-centimeter long wound suddenly appeared before her eyes. Sun Ziyi couldn't help but take a breath and said. I don't have any anesthetic at home. The process of suturing the wound will be very painful. You have to bear it. The man nodded slightly, took the towel handed to him by Sun Ziyi, and bit it tightly in his mouth. Everything was ready, but the temperature was so low that the blood on the man's wound had frozen into ice. Sun Ziyi covered the wound with a towel to melt the ice, and then it was time to show her medical skills. The wound must be treated before it freezes again. I have to say that Sun Ziyi's medical skills are superb. She can disinfect, clean and suture in one go. The man's wounds were treated in less than 5 minutes. However, the man also fainted from the pain. Sun Ziyi ignored him and continued to treat the man's abdominal wound. With the previous process, she was faster and finished it in 3 minutes. Even in such a low temperature, a layer of fine beads of sweat appeared on Sun Ziyi's forehead. Gently wiping away the sweat, Sun Ziyi woke the man up and said. Due to limited conditions, this is all I can do. I don't have tetanus shots at home. Your wound is likely to get infected. You must pay more attention. The man's face turned pale. He was very satisfied that the wound was effectively sutured. He looked at Sun Ziyi with gratitude and said in a weak voice. Dr. Sun, this has troubled you a lot. Can I go back now? This is not a hospital. No matter how kind Sun Ziyi is, she will not take out her own blanket to keep him warm. The pain and the cold were unbearable for the man. He just wanted to return home as soon as possible. Sun Ziyi helped the man to the door and handed him over to his wife. Back in the house, Sun Ziyi almost collapsed and sat on the sofa. Her cheeks were slightly flushed and sweat was dripping down her forehead. It was obvious that the operation had just taken a lot of her energy. Her eyes revealed deep fatigue, but more of a sense of satisfaction and relief. At this moment, Lin Feng slowly walked down from upstairs. He sat opposite Sun Ziyi, looked at her exhausted appearance, and said. Why are you trying so hard? Those people's lives have nothing to do with you. Sun Ziyi raised her head and showed a gentle smile. She shook her head gently and said, "This is my mission. A doctor's duty is to save lives and heal the wounded. I feel truly relieved when I see that the patient is safe and sound." Lin Feng looked at Sun Ziyi's determined eyes and couldn't help but sigh in his heart that there are really not many doctors as responsible as her. Not only does she possess superb medical skills, she is also willing to take risks for her patients. He knew that Sun Ziyi was risking her life to treat these neighbors, and this spirit was truly admirable. However, Lin Feng couldn't help but speak. "It's useless even if you save them now. They will die in this disaster in no time." When Sun Ziyi heard this, she frowned and asked in confusion. "What do you mean? Is this cold snap going to last a long time?" Lin Feng smiled slightly and was about to explain when the doorbell rang again. The two looked at each other and understood that this meant another injured person had come. Lin Feng looked at Sun Ziyi's tired appearance and said with some reluctance, "If you are tired, just ignore them and let them fend for themselves." Sun Ziyi shook her head and said firmly, "Since I have promised them, I must be responsible to the end. I can't give up on them just because I am tired. Go upstairs first. I'll accompany you after I've dealt with them." After saying that, she stood up, took a deep breath, and prepared to face new challenges. Aunt Zhao's house, under the dim light, Wang Bo sat quietly on the sofa, with a piece of cloth that Aunt Zhao found casually wrapped around his arm. The wound was simply bandaged and still oozing blood, and it was obvious that even the most basic disinfection had not been done. Aunt Zhao couldn't help but frown when she saw his expression. "Master Wang, Sun Ziyi has already agreed to treat everyone, why aren't you going there right now?" Wang Bo took a deep breath, trying to endure the pain from his wound. He glanced at Aunt Zhao, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. "What do you know? We have to be the last one to go. This way, we can take this opportunity to control Sun Ziyi so that she won't be disturbed by others." When Aunt Zhao heard this, she was shocked. She didn't expect Wang Bo to be so cunning. However, this is also good, at least Sun Ziyi is treating everyone now, not only can he get a lot of food, but he can also use her to threaten Lin Feng. This is a good thing that kills two birds with one stone. Thinking of this, Aunt Zhao looked at Wang Bo with a little more respect in her eyes. "Master Wang, you are really smart. I really have to admire you." Upon hearing this, Wang Bo's lips curled up into a smug smile. "It's nothing. Go and keep watch at the door of Sun Ziyi's house. If no one is there, notify me immediately." Chapter 56. Aunt Zhao nodded in agreement, but was secretly thinking about Wang Bo's plan. She knew that even though she was being used, she didn't care as long as she could get what she wanted. So she turned and walked out of the room, heading towards Sun Ziyi's house. After sending the last injured person away, Sun Ziyi finally had some free time. She looked up at the clock on the wall. "It's so late, no one will come." Sun Ziyi murmured to herself, with a hint of fatigue in her voice. She was just about to ask Lin Feng to come down and help tidy up the clinic when suddenly, there was another knock on the door, breaking the tranquility of the night. Sun Ziyi frowned. She had sutured the wounds of 8 injured people today and her hands were almost too tired to lift. However, doctors have a kind heart, and she has already said what she wants to say, so she can't just turn people away. She gritted her teeth and walked to the door, looking through the peephole, only to see the people she least wanted to see, Aunt Zhao and Wang Bo. Aunt Zhao looked anxious, while Wang Bo looked indifferent, as if he was not the one injured. Sun Ziyi felt unhappy in her heart. She knew something about the conflict between Lin Feng and Wang Bo. Although she didn't want to let personal grudges affect the treatment of the injured, it was indeed difficult for her to remain calm when facing Wang Bo. She said through the door, "I'm sorry, it's too late today and I'm a little tired. Please come back tomorrow." Upon hearing this, Aunt Zhao hurriedly explained, "Dr. Sun, we know you've worked hard. Although Master Wang's injury is not serious, it cannot be delayed. We came here so late to give time to those seriously ill patients. This is also for the sake of others." Sun Ziyi's heart moved. She understood Aunt Zhao's intention and knew that Wang Bo's injury could not be delayed. Since Wang Bo was so selfless, Sun Ziyi couldn't turn him away. After opening the door, Aunt Zhao supported Wang Bo and walked into the house. Seeing this, Sun Ziyi immediately stopped the two of them and spoke sternly. "Aunt Zhao, I understand your feelings. However, I made it very clear in the group that only the injured person is allowed to come in. If you want to break the rules, please go back." When Wang Bo heard this, he suddenly pushed Aunt Zhao's arm away and said, "Aunt Zhao, don't worry. I will abide by the rules set by Dr. Sunday. How about this? Just wait for me outside the door." After saying this, he gave Aunt Zhao a reassuring look, as if telling her, "Even though I'm injured, I still have no problem dealing with a weak woman." However, Sun Ziyi was not the weak woman he imagined. She looked at Wang Bo's provocative eyes and felt even more unhappy. But she also understood that the most important thing now was to treat the wounded. So, she gritted her teeth and let Wang Bo into the clinic, but at the same time she secretly warned herself, "You must stay calm and not let your personal emotions affect the rescue work." After entering the house, Sun Ziyi began to treat Wang Bo's wounds as usual. Although she had some grudges against Wang Bo, as a doctor, she tried to remain calm and professional. Although Wang Bo's injuries were not serious, they still required careful cleaning and sutures. Sun Ziyi was skilled and completed most of the work quickly. However, just as she was about to bandage Wang Bo's wound, an accident happened. Wang Bo suddenly stood up and grabbed Sun Ziyi's wrist. His eyes became fierce and he spoke viciously. Dr. Sun, I know that you have a special relationship with Lin Feng. Now I need your help with something. Sun Ziyi was startled by Wang Bo's sudden action. She struggled to break free from Wang Bo's restraints. But Wang Bo was incredibly strong and she couldn't break free at all. What do you want to do? Let me go. Sun Ziyi shouted in horror. Wang Bo sneered and said, What do I want to do? Of course I want you to have a taste of my power. Do you think you, a mere doctor, can offend me so easily? I'm telling you, if you don't give me a satisfactory answer today, don't even think about leaving here alive. As he spoke, Wang Bo took out a dagger from his pocket with his other hand and put it against Sun Ziyi's neck. Sun Ziyi felt a chill running down her bones. She knew that Wang Bo really dared to do it. Don't be impulsive. If you have anything to say, just talk it over nicely. Sun Ziyi tried her best to remain calm and tried to calm Wang Bo's emotions with words. However, Wang Bo didn't seem to be willing to listen to her explanation. He said viciously. Stop talking nonsense. Do as I say, or I'll make you bleed. Sun Ziyi's heart tightened. She knew that Wang Bo was a man of his words. However, she couldn't just succumb to his threats. She took a deep breath and tried to make her voice sound calmer. Wang Bo, calm down. Lin Feng and I are just friends. If you have anything to say, you should talk to Lin Feng directly instead of threatening me here. Just when Wang Bo was about to subdue Sun Ziyi, a bone-chilling chill suddenly struck him from behind. It was like a cold steel needle piercing his skin and straight into his heart. He shuddered suddenly, and the pride and arrogance in his heart were instantly dispelled by the chill. Then, a cold feeling came from the top of his head, like a cold snake's tongue gently touching his scalp, making him shiver. He instinctively wanted to turn around, but heard a cold and familiar voice ringing in his ears. Don't move, put your hands up. Wang Bo's heart felt like it was sinking into an ice cellar. This voice was very familiar to him. You don't need to look to know that it was Lin Feng who put the gun to his head. He felt a strong fear rising from the bottom of his heart, and his hands raised involuntarily. He turned around slowly and saw the person he least wanted to see, Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, like the chilly wind in winter, making people shudder. He snatched the dagger from Wang Bo's hand and kicked Wang Bo hard in the stomach. I think you are tired of living. You even dare to touch my people. Lin Feng cursed, his voice full of anger and majesty. Wang Bo was kicked to the ground, and the pain made it almost impossible for him to breathe. He looked at Lin Feng unwillingly, but did not dare to say another word. He knew that Lin Feng would not let him go easily this time. When Sun Ziyi saw this scene, the fear in her heart finally dissipated. She looked at Lin Feng gratefully, then threw herself into his arms. Lin Feng's words "my person" made her feel a little embarrassed, but at the same time she felt extremely relieved. Lin Feng patted Sun Ziyi's back gently and spoke softly. Don't worry, I'm here, nothing will happen. Chapter 57. Sun Ziyi nodded gently in Lin Feng's arms, like a docile little wife. After comforting Sun Ziyi, Lin Feng walked up to Wang Bo, squatted down, and stared at him with eyes like knives. Wang Bo, do you think you can hurt others at will? Today, I will let you taste the pain. Wang Bo listened to Lin Feng's words and felt a strong sense of uneasiness in his heart. He tried to struggle, but his body seemed to be nailed down and he couldn't move. Lin Feng smiled coldly, took out a tiny silver needle from his pocket and waved it in front of Wang Bo. This is a silver needle I made specially. Every injection will make you feel excruciating pain. Lin Feng said this as he gently gave Wang Bo an injection on his arm. Wang Bo suddenly felt a sharp pain coming from his arm, as if millions of ants were gnawing at his skin. He screamed and his body began to tremble violently. Lin Feng did not stop and continued to PK Wang Bo's body with silver needles. Every time the needle was inserted, Wang Bo screamed and his body trembled. The expression on Lin Feng's face became colder and colder, as if he was enjoying the torture. Sun Ziyi looked at this scene, and although she was a little scared, she knew that Lin Feng was venting his anger for her. A warm feeling welled up in my heart. She held Lin Feng's hand tightly, as if to give him strength. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Feng finally stopped what he was doing. He looked at Wang Bo who was almost unconscious due to the pain and said coldly. This is just the beginning. If you dare to hurt my people again, I will make you live a life worse than death. After saying that, Lin Feng stood up and walked towards the door like he was dragging a dead dog. When Aunt Zhao caught sight of Lin Feng, her face turned pale instantly and her heart tightened suddenly. Her feet seemed to be pulled by an invisible force and she instinctively took 2 steps back, her voice trembling noticeably. You, how did you end up in Dr. Sun's house? However, her attention was quickly attracted by Wang Bo at Lin Feng's feet. Wang Bo was pale, with blood at the corner of his mouth, and his body fell to the ground weakly. Aunt Zhao's heart sank, and she instantly realized that Wang Bo's action had failed, and he was severely punished by Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't care about Aunt Zhao's reaction. He threw Wang Bo's body out with force, like throwing a rag doll. Then he turned around and faced Aunt Zhao with a sneer on his face. You are always welcome to seek revenge on me. His tone was full of provocation and teasing, as if all this was just a game to him. The reason why he didn't kill Wang Bo directly was that he wanted to have some fun with these people. If all these people died, the game would be too boring. He liked the feeling of cat and mouse, and liked watching these people fail again and again and being played around by him time and time again. Having S**X is fun, but you can't do it 24 hours a day. Occasionally you need to find something else to change the mood. To Lin Feng, these people are his diversion and a little fun in his boring life. Back in the house, Sun Ziyi sat quietly on the sofa, her eyes slightly empty. He seemed to be still immersed in the thrilling experience just now and unable to extricate himself completely. Her face was pale and her fingers were trembling slightly. It was obvious that she had not yet fully recovered from the fear. When Lin Feng walked into the house, Sun Ziyi woke up as if from a dream. She tried to cheer herself up and took the initiative to walk towards Lin Feng. Although her voice was trembling, it was full of gratitude. Today, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I really don't know what I would have encountered. Sun Ziyi couldn't help but think of Wang Bo's hideous face. If Lin Feng had not shown up in time today, she would most likely have fallen into Wang Bo's clutches and suffered endless torture and pain. Thinking of this, her heart beat faster and her body trembled involuntarily. However, Lin Feng did not show much sympathy for Sun Ziyi's experience. His purpose in contacting Sun Ziyi was very clear. First, because she was a doctor and could provide him with medical assistance, the second reason was that she was a beauty and made his heart beat fast. Although Sun Ziyi was in tears of gratitude at the moment, Lin Feng remained calm and rational. He did not forget his original intention because of Sun Ziyi's gratitude. Lin Feng patted Sun Ziyi's shoulder gently and comforted her. Ziyi, you are safe now, don't be afraid. I will try my best to protect you in the future and will not let this happen again. When Sun Ziyi heard Lin Feng's words, the fear and anxiety in her heart were slightly relieved. She raised her head and looked at Lin Feng's firm and confident face, and a warm feeling surged in her heart. Thank you, Lin Feng. I really appreciate you. Sun Ziyi once again expressed her gratitude to Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled slightly and said, Ziyi, we are friends, and we should help each other. You need to have a good rest now, so I won't disturb you. After saying that, Lin Feng turned around and left Sun Ziyi's house. He knew that what Sun Ziyi needed at the moment was quietness and rest, not too much disturbance. After Lin Feng left, Sun Ziyi sat alone on the sofa, feeling mixed emotions. She knew that she was able to escape today thanks to Lin Feng's timely appearance. At the same time, she also realized that she was not alone in this world. Biozi's home, under the dim light, the atmosphere seemed a little depressing. After a few days of careful care, Biozi's injuries have improved significantly. But he still sat on the sofa, dejected, as if he had lost his former majesty. After being defeated repeatedly by Lin Feng, the domineering spirit in his heart had long since disappeared, and was replaced by endless frustration. Sun Yu sat next to Biozi, looking at his decadent appearance, and couldn't help feeling a little anxious. She chose to join Biozi just to fill her stomach. But now Biozi has become useless, putting her in a dilemma. She sighed softly and spoke. Brother Bio, there is no food at home. You should think of a solution. Biozi looked up at her, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Don't worry, I'm just thinking about it. However, Sun Yu did not calm down because of this. She frowned and said dissatisfiedly. Think about it. You've been thinking about it for a few days, but I don't see you coming up with a solution. Just then, there was a knock on the door. A familiar voice came. Brother Bio, are you home? I'm Qiangzi. Biozi frowned when he heard this, and couldn't help feeling confused. Qiangzi, he was not unfamiliar with this name. He was once one of the thugs recruited by Wang Bo at a high price. Chapter 58. They didn't have much in common, so why did Qiangzi suddenly come to visit? Although he had doubts in his mind, Biozi still asked Sun Yu to open the door. The door slowly opened, and a burly, fierce-looking man walked in. It's Qiangzi. As soon as Qiangzi entered the room, he stared at Sun Yu's body from head to toe. To him, Sun Yu, a standard woman, was already the best. This is also because Biozi has lost his former prestige. He would never dare to do this in the past. Afterwards, Qiangzi sat opposite Biozi with a lewd look on his face and said with a smile. Brother Bio, how does this little girl taste? However, this sentence touched Biozi's sore spot. His body had long been hollowed out by alcohol and S***X. Now I can't even get through the door, and I haven't had a chance to taste Sun Yu at all. However, he still pretended to be proud and said. In one word, it's damn tight. This made Qiangzi feel even more agitated, and he kept rubbing his hands. He couldn't take his eyes off Sun Yu's beautiful body. Sun Yu also heard the conversation between Biozi and Qiangzi. As an experienced green tea, she was already accustomed to such scenes. On the contrary, she was even a little proud because she could attract so many men's attention, which proved her charm. However, Sun Yu knew clearly that her target was Lin Feng, and she did not want any scandal to affect her image in Lin Feng's mind. So she pretended to be angry, glared at Qiangzi, then quickly returned to the bedroom and slammed the door behind her. Seeing this scene, Qiangzi felt a little dissatisfied and cursed in a low voice. FK, you stinky BCH, I don't know how many men have F'd you, and you're still pretending to be pure in front of me. As the saying goes, when beating a dog, you have to look at its owner first. Qiangzi's words made Biozi a little angry. Qiangzi, what do you mean by that? Don't you know that she is my woman now? Hearing this, Qiangzi laughed and said. Haha, brother Bio, don't get me wrong, I'm just a brother who doesn't keep his mouth shut. How about this, to make amends, I'll give you 2 ounces of meat, what do you think? Having said that, Qiangzi deliberately paused, glanced towards Sun Yu's bedroom, and continued. But, little girl, you have to let me play with you. In the last fight in the underground parking lot, he relied on his unyielding ruthlessness to not only escape unscathed, but also reaped unexpected rewards. Qiangzi knew clearly that in this crisis-ridden apocalypse, survival itself was a cruel battle. He understood that his fate could be controlled by others at any time. One day, he might become someone else's food. Instead of living in fear like this, it is better to enjoy the happiness in front of you as soon as possible and live happily day by day. Biozi's stomach was rumbling with hunger. The food inside had long been digested, leaving only a feeling of emptiness. When Qiangzi mentioned the word meat, Biozi's throat moved unconsciously, as if he could swallow all his saliva. Although he was eager for food, Biozi did not immediately agree to Qiangzi's request. He knew clearly that his current situation was not optimistic, and his only asset was the two women around him. Biozi pondered for a moment, weighing the pros and cons. He knew that Qiangzi was a difficult character and would not give up his demands easily. However, he also didn't want to put himself in a more passive situation. So he took a deep breath and spoke slowly. Let's put it this way. There's another woman in that bedroom. If you can give me 10 pounds of meat, both of them will belong to you tonight. Oh shit, 1 dragon and 2 phoenixes. How could Qiangzi, a bachelor for 1,000 years, not be moved by this? However, Qiangzi was not carried away by Biozi's proposal. He knew very well that in this world, every resource was extremely precious and he had to calculate carefully to maximize the benefits. He raised a sly smile and spoke slowly. Brother Biao, you are asking for too much. You should know the current situation better than me. Meat is much more scarce than women now. I can easily exchange 2 taels of meat for a woman. But you asked for 10 kilograms. Do you really think your woman is made of gold? When Biozi heard Qiangzi's words, he frowned slightly. He had long expected that Qiangzi was a difficult person to deal with and was a shrewd man. How much do you want to give? Qiangzi stretched out 2 fingers, waved them in front of Biozi, and a smug smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. 2 pounds of meat, 3 days. When Biozi heard this, he couldn't help feeling a little annoyed. He knew that Qiangzi was deliberately trying to lower the price, but given the current situation, he could only try his best. So, he said in a deep voice. 2 caddies of meat is too little, and 3 days is too short. How about we both compromise and give 3 caddies of meat for 3 nights? When Qiangzi heard this, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. He knew that Biozi had made concessions and he had achieved his goal. So he nodded and said with a smile. Okay, let's do as Brother Biao said, 3 pounds of meat, 3 nights. Deal. After some bargaining, the two finally reached an agreement. Although Biozi was unwilling, he also knew that this was the best result at the moment. Qiangzi was contented to get the woman he wanted. However, after Sun Yu returned to his bedroom, he felt mixed emotions. She walked silently to the door, slowly lay down, put her ear against the door, and eavesdropped on the conversation between Biozi and Qiangzi. Understand that you are being traded. She turned around and spoke to the other woman on the bed. Why Wei, Biozi sold us out. We have to find a way to escape. Upon hearing this, Wai Wei was stunned at first, then shrugged nonchalantly and said. Sell it if you want. As long as I can eat my fill, it doesn't matter who I sleep with. I'll just treat it as letting a pig do the dirty work. When Sun Yu heard Wai Wei's words, she felt angry. She frowned and her tone became stern. Are you stupid? We are just tools for them to satisfy their desires. Do you think they will give us food? We have to find a way to escape by ourselves. Wai Wei then realized what Sun Yu meant. She hurriedly sat up from the bed, a trace of fear in her eyes. Then what should we do? Why don't we go to your house? Sun Yu shook his head, a hint of helplessness flashing in his eyes. Go to my house? Do you think my house is safe? They will break down the door. We need to calm down now and think about what to do. The two women sat on the bed with heavy faces, their hearts filled with fear and helplessness. After a moment, a light flashed in Sun Yu's eyes. She seemed to have thought of something and spoke slowly. I thought of someone who might be able to help us. Chapter 59. When Wai Wei heard Sun Yu's words, a glimmer of hope immediately appeared in her eyes, and she spoke eagerly. Who is it? Contact him quickly. I'll do anything to get me out. He took a deep breath, took out his cell phone and called Lin Feng. However, what Sun Yu didn't expect was that Lin Feng hung up on her several times in a row. It seems that something ruthless is needed. Sun Yu turned and looked at Wai Wei and said. Wai Wei, if you want to go out, you have to listen to me. Seeing Sun Yu's serious expression, Wai Wei nodded heavily. Well, I'll listen to you. After that, Sun Yu expressed her thoughts, and then the two women endured the cold. Wearing sexy lace underwear, she took many photos and sent them to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was leisurely flipping through the photos on his phone, with a playful look in his eyes. He knew that Sun Yu must have something to ask for since he suddenly sent these photos. However, he did not rush to respond, because for him, Sun Yu's life and death was of great importance. It was just a trivial matter and he would not take it to heart at all. At this moment, Sun Yu sent a voice message with a hint of urgency and pleading in his voice. Lin Feng, look, the photo shows me and my good friend Wai Wei. We know that we are ordinary in appearance and cannot be compared with those beautiful female companions you had in the past. But now we are in trouble and cannot go out, and they cannot come to accompany you. Wai Wei and I have discussed it, and we are willing to serve you together. After listening to Sun Yu's voice, Lin Feng curled up his lips into a sneer. He secretly mocked himself in his heart, this woman is so naive and cute. When has he ever lacked women around him? To him, these photos and voice messages were nothing more than a boring game. However, Lin Feng also knew that Sun Yu and Wei Wei would not approach him easily, and they must have some ulterior motives. So he replied with a message indifferently. Tell me, what exactly do you want? Soon, Sun Yu's reply flashed across the screen like lightning, and she wrote eagerly. Lin Feng, Biozi's gang wants to sell us as hostages. We really have nowhere else to go, so we come to you for help. Please, take us in, we really have nowhere else to go. However, Lin Feng did not feel much concern about Biozi and his gang. In his eyes, they were nothing more than insignificant little characters who could be easily wiped out by him at any time. As for Sun Yu, he had no interest in even taking another look at him. He didn't even keep Sun Ziyi in his family, so how could he allow a woman like Sun Yu to enter his territory? Lin Feng was unmoved by the temptations of Sun Yu and Wei Wei. If he wants a woman, he only needs to say a few words in the group, and countless women will throw themselves into his arms. He replied without hesitation. I'm sorry, but I have no interest in you. Seeing Lin Feng's reply, Sun Yu's heart sank instantly. She thought she had shown all her sincerity, but she didn't expect that she still couldn't move Lin Feng's heart. There was a flash of despair in her eyes and tears welled up in her eyes. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Biozi's voice followed. Sun Yu, Wei Wei, open the door quickly, I brought you some food. Sun Yu and Wei Wei both knew that this was just Biozi's trick to trick them into opening the door. Sun Yu and Wei Wei looked at each other, their eyes filled with fear and anxiety. They knew that if they opened the door, what awaited them would be Qiangzi's cruel torture. Wei Wei said anxiously. Yu, what should we do? Come up with a solution quickly. A hint of determination flashed in Sun Yu's eyes, and she took a deep breath and said. Well, after we open the door, we can rush out together while Biozi isn't paying attention. Wei Wei asked worriedly. So, where can we run to then? Sun Yu gritted his teeth and said. Don't worry about it, just follow me. As long as we can escape from here, there will definitely be a way. Afterwards, Sun Yu and Wei Wei plucked up their courage, held each other's hands tightly, and walked towards the door together. Sun Yu took a deep breath and pushed the door open with force. A cool breeze instantly rushed in, bringing with it the smell of the outside world. She exerted force suddenly and pushed the defenseless Biozi away. Biozi was pushed by the sudden force and staggered a few steps, almost falling to the ground. His eyes widened, his face full of disbelief, as if he had not expected these two seemingly weak women to be so bold. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Sun Yu pulled Wei Wei and rushed out of the door at lightning speed. Qiangzi in the room was immersed in the wonderful things that were about to happen, and was stunned by this sudden scene. Biozi quickly came to his senses. He realized that Sun Yu and Wei Wei must have heard his conversation with Qiangzi and wanted to take the opportunity to escape. A strong sense of panic surged in his heart. Losing these two women would mean that he would face the fate of starving to death. So he hurriedly shouted to Qiangzi, quick, go and chase them back. We can't let them get away. When Qiangzi heard Biozi's cry, he suddenly woke up from his dream. A surge of anger surged in his heart. These two women actually dared to escape right under his nose. This was simply outrageous. He cursed fiercely, damn it, we have already got you by the hand, how could we possibly let you go? After saying that, he strode towards the direction where Sun Yu and Wei Wei were running away. His face was full of ferocity, as if he had already witnessed the cruel scene after the two women were captured. However, Sun Yu and Wei Wei had already escaped from his sight. The two women ran wildly all the way, their hearts filled with panic and anxiety. They knew they couldn't stop, otherwise if Qiangzi and Biozi caught up with them, the consequences would be disastrous. Finally, they ran to Lin Feng's doorstep. Sun Yu panted heavily, banged on the door hard, and shouted anxiously. Lin Feng, save us. Qiangzi and Biozi are chasing us. Wei Wei echoed nervously. Lin Feng, please, save us. Their voices were filled with despair and pleading, hoping to get Lin Feng's help. However, there was silence inside the door, and no response. Sun Yu's heart sank. Could it be that Lin Feng wasn't at home? Or maybe he didn't want to save them at all. She continued to bang on the door and shout loudly. Lin Feng, we are Sun Yu and Wei Wei, please save us. At this moment, Lin Feng's voice finally came from inside the door. What do you want from me? When Sun Yu heard Lin Feng's voice, he was delighted and spoke hurriedly. Lin Feng, Qiangzi and Biozi want to arrest us. We have nowhere to escape, so we can only come to you for help. There was a hint of indifference in Lin Feng's voice. You come to me for help? I've already rejected you before, why are you still coming to me? Chapter 60. Sun Yu's heart tightened. She knew that Lin Feng's attitude was not friendly, but she still tried hard. Lin Feng, we know you rejected us before, but we really have no other choice. Please, save us. Wei Wei also begged. Lin Feng, we are innocent. We don't want to be caught by Qiangzi and Biozi. Please, give us a chance. Lin Feng was silent for a while and said. I saved you, what can you give me in return? Sun Yu and Wei Wei looked at each other. Although they felt a little uneasy, they nodded eagerly. We are proficient in all kinds of skills and we guarantee that you will enjoy it to the fullest. At this moment, Qiangzi and Biozi also caught up, panting. They saw Sun Yu and Wei Wei standing at the door of Lin Feng's house, with a hint of hesitation on their faces. Obviously, Lin Feng, the legendary devil, left a deep shadow on them. Biozi looked at Lin Feng's tightly closed door and sighed. Well, let's go back. We can't afford to offend Lin Feng. As soon as Biozi finished speaking, he turned around and prepared to go home. However, Qiangzi stood there, with unwillingness flashing in his eyes. He glared at Biozi fiercely and cursed. Damn it, you coward. If we go back like this, how are we going to survive? Biozi shook his head helplessly, said nothing more, and continued walking towards home. Qiangzi stood where he was, staring at Sun Yu and Wei Wei. Seeing that Lin Feng didn't open the door for a long time, he felt a surge of courage in his heart and thought that Lin Feng might not want to help the two girls. So he rushed towards Sun Yu, ready to catch her. Just when Qiangzi's hand was about to touch Sun Yu's clothes, the door of Lin Feng's house suddenly opened. A pitch-black gun muzzle stretched out from the crack in the door, pointing at Qiangzi. Qiangzi was so frightened that his soul left his body and he spoke tremblingly. Linear. Lin Feng, why did you come out? However, Lin Feng did not answer Qiangzi's question. He had a cold face and a sharp look in his eyes. Bang bang, after 2 gunshots, Qiangzi felt his legs go limp and he knelt straight on the ground. It turned out that Lin Feng's 2 shots hit Qiangzi's knees respectively, making him lose the ability to stand instantly. Qiangzi fell to the ground in pain, his heart filled with regret and fear. He knew that he shouldn't take any chances this time, and he was afraid that the days ahead would be even more difficult. Sun Yu and Wei Wei breathed a sigh of relief. They looked at Lin Feng with gratitude, knowing that he had saved their lives. Lin Feng ignored Qiangzi, who was kneeling on the ground and groaning, and quickly entered the house with Sun Yu and Wei Wei. He did not relax his vigilance because he was temporarily safe. Instead, he pointed his gun at the 2 women more cautiously. Take off all your clothes. Sun Yu and Wei Wei were shocked, but they understood that Lin Feng did this to make sure they didn't carry any weapons. In case they are using a torture tactic. After all, in this dangerous world, trust has become such a luxury, and defense has become a necessity for survival. Although they felt a little uneasy, Sun Yu and Wei Wei still chose to obey Lin Feng's orders. They quickly and orderly took off their clothes, leaving only their underwear. The long-lost warmth made their tense nerves relax a little. Completely ignoring the fact that she was standing naked in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng carefully checked their bodies and put down his gun only after confirming that there were no hidden weapons. Afterwards, Lin Feng took out 2 sets of clothes from his personal space and threw them at the feet of Sun Yu and Wei Wei. Put it on. I have no interest in you. Sun Yu and Wei Wei looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion. They didn't understand why Lin Feng asked them to take off their clothes and now asked them to put them on so casually. But they also understood that they were now in danger, and the only thing they could do was to obey Lin Feng's orders. So, the 2 of them silently picked up the clothes on the ground and began to put them on one by one. Lin Feng watched them getting dressed, and there was no ripple in his heart. Lin Feng asked the 2 women to enter a separate room, gave them each a piece of bread and a bottle of water, and said, "Stay here for now. I'll need you to do something later." After saying this, he locked the door without paying attention to the 2 women's reactions. After coming out, Lin Feng sent a message to Chu Hanyu. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. After confirming that it was safe, Lin Feng let Chu Hanyu in. After several contacts, Chu Hanyu no longer felt restrained. After entering the door, he took off his coat and hung it by the door. She twitched her nose slightly, as if she smelled something different, and asked in confusion. Why does this place smell like perfume? Are there other women in your family besides me? I have to say that women's intuition is still very accurate. Lin Feng said without hesitation. Yes, there are 2 women in the room. After hearing this, Chu Hanyu felt a little puzzled. She didn't understand why Lin Feng had specially called her over since there were already other women here, and more than one. But her curiosity did not drive her to ask, because in front of Lin Feng, she had already learned to remain silent and obey. She knew very well that there were some things that she shouldn't ask and that she couldn't understand. So she chose to remain silent and wait quietly for Lin Feng's next instructions. Lin Feng looked at Chu Hanyu's doubtful yet submissive expression, with an imperceptible arc at the corner of his mouth, and said softly, "That's why I called you here. I have no interest in the 2 women inside, but they are very good at martial arts. They are proficient in all kinds of martial arts. I'll let them teach you later." When Chu Hanyu heard this, her face instantly turned red, like a ripe apple. She had never expected Lin Feng to make such an arrangement, and she couldn't help feeling an indescribable shyness and embarrassment in her heart. She lowered her head, clasped her hands tightly together, and spoke with a trembling voice. "Lin Feng, I didn't expect you to let me learn these. How can I face them? It's so embarrassing." Lin Feng looked at her shy appearance and felt even more expectant. "Don't be nervous, Hanyu. They are all professionals and will know how to teach you. You will learn it quickly." Chu Hanyu raised her head and met Lin Feng's deep and determined eyes. She knew in her heart that in this chaotic world, if she wanted to survive, you must rely on Lin Feng's strength, obey his orders, and serve him wholeheartedly. Afterwards, Lin Feng brought Chu Hanyu to the room where Sun Yu and Wei Wei were. The door slowly opened, and Chu Hanyu followed Lin Feng. Nervously. Chapter 61. When Sun Yu and Wei Wei saw Chu Hanyu coming, they showed puzzled expressions on their faces. They looked at each other, their hearts full of confusion. What is this for? 4P? Chu Hanyu looked at their puzzled eyes and couldn't help feeling a little uneasy. She didn't know what kind of situation she would face. Lin Feng quietly stared at the 2 women in front of him, Sun Yu and Wei Wei, with an evil smile on his face. Teach her all your 18 martial arts. If you do well, I will naturally give you food as a reward, but if you don't do it well, then what will happen? I'm sure you all know it well. After listening to Lin Feng's words, Sun Yu and Wei Wei finally got their doubts answered. It turns out that Lin Feng saved them just to let them teach martial arts to Chu Hanyu. They couldn't help but feel sad. As they were also women, Lin Feng had no interest in even touching them. However, they also clearly know that no matter the appearance or figure, compared with Chu Hanyu, there is indeed a big gap between them. Chu Hanyu's unique temperament and charm made them feel inferior. In the following battle, Chu Hanyu was the main attacker, while Sun Yu and Wei Wei were in charge of command. The battle process was extremely difficult and went through countless setbacks. After 5 hours of hard work, Chu Hanyu finally learned a set of martial arts and successfully conquered Lin Feng. During this period, Sun Yu and Wei Wei asked Lin Feng many times to join the battle, but Lin Feng firmly refused. In the end, Lin Feng did not let their efforts go to waste. He gave Sun Yu and Wei Wei a box of instant noodles as a reward and sent them away. However, Lin Feng's treatment of Chu Hanyu was completely different. He prepared a sumptuous meal for her, and the two of them sat at the table to enjoy it together. Chu Hanyu's face was flushed at this time, and she still felt a little shy when she thought of the fierce battle just now. But she also knows that all this is the result of her own hard work. And Lin Feng also looked at her with new eyes because of her outstanding performance. Chu Hanyu lowered her head, clenched her hands together, and asked cautiously with a hint of trembling and shame in her voice. Linear. Lin Feng, am I doing this okay? I know I've never been exposed to this before, so I might be a little clumsy. Lin Feng looked at her with a smile, a hint of admiration flashed in his eyes, and he responded with interest. Chu Hanyu, you've done very well. Although you're still a little rusty, this is your first attempt, and your performance is already very good. Just do it a few more times, I believe you will become more and more proficient. But I think next time you can try to bring Zhang Yading with you, then you can be more relaxed. When Chu Hanyu heard Lin Feng's words, her heart tightened and the shame on her face became even more intense. She hesitated for a moment before speaking in a low voice. Well, then you should talk to her. I don't know how to start. Lin Feng looked at her shy and nervous appearance and couldn't help but feel a little amused. He patted Chu Hanyu's shoulder gently and spoke gently. Okay, let me handle this matter. Don't worry, I will tell Zhang Yading. After hearing what Lin Feng said, Chu Hanyu felt grateful. She nodded and decided to work harder to live up to Lin Feng's expectations of her. After Chu Hanyu left, Lin Feng sat alone on the sofa, thinking about his life after the end of the world. It's really awesome. This is probably the treatment that emperors in ancient times received. After Sun Yu and Wei Wei left Lin Feng's residence, they could only return to Sun Yu's home silently with a hanging heart. Although Lin Feng gave them food, that gift could not offset the panic in their hearts. They knew that the danger was not really over, and Biozi's ferocious figure was always lingering in their minds. The two could only stay at home in fear, fearing that Biozi would suddenly come to their door. Wei Wei is relatively timid, and faced with such a dilemma, she has almost no good ideas. She said to Sun Yu worriedly. Yu, this is not a solution. Biozi will come to our house sooner or later. What should we do? Sun Yu looked at Wei Wei's worried expression and felt helpless. She sighed, trying to calm herself down, and then spoke. Well, if it doesn't work, we can only go out and hide. But where can we hide? After hearing this, Wei Wei became even more confused and asked. Hide? We can't even leave the community, where can we hide? Sun Yu pondered for a while, then said. I have an idea. Let's go to Zhao Ting's house first. Zhao Ting's plastic surgery failed and she is extremely ugly. No one will miss her. So, Sun Yu and Wei Wei decided to bring only 4 bags of instant noodles as a stepping stone and hide the remaining food at home just in case. They walked out of the house carefully and headed towards Zhao Ting's house. Arriving at Zhao Ting's house, Sun Yu knocked on the door. After a while, the door opened and Zhao Ting looked displeased. She thought Sun Yu and the other man came to ask them for help. After all, there was a food shortage and everyone was struggling to survive. Zhao Ting said bluntly. What are you doing here? I have no food at home. Sun Yu and Wei Wei felt a sinking feeling in their hearts when they heard what Zhao Ting said. They know that the current situation is indeed difficult, but they have no other choice. Sun Yu hurriedly took out instant noodles from his arms, handed it to Zhao Ting, and said. Oh, Ting Ting, what are you thinking about? I guess that you didn't have any food at home, so I brought it to you specially. When Zhao Ting saw the instant noodles in Sun Yu's hand, her eyes suddenly lit up. She rubbed her eyes hard, thinking it was an illusion. She and her family have been suffering from hunger these days, and even the most basic food and clothing can hardly be guaranteed. Now seeing these 4 bags of instant noodles, she was almost moved to tears. At this time, Zhao Ting's father Zhao Jiangguo also came over after hearing the noise. He had been lying in bed recuperating due to an injury. After hearing the conversation at the door, he anxiously wanted to get up and greet Sun Yu. However, as his body had not yet recovered, he accidentally fell off the bed. Despite this, he still kept talking. Quick, please invite Sun Yu in. I'm starving to death. Zhao Ting looked at the instant noodles in her hand, her inner excitement was beyond words. Her eyes were slightly red and her voice was trembling. Yu, I don't know what to say. You guys are so kind. This instant noodle is just a timely help to us. Sun Yu and Wei Wei heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing this. Finally found a place to stay. Chapter 62. Zhao Ting quickly invited the two into the house and carefully placed the instant noodles on the table. Zhao Jiangguo also got up from the ground. Although he was still a little weak, a long-lost smile appeared on his face. Sun Yu, thank you so much. This instant noodle is a lifesaver for us. Sun Yu shook his head and said with a smile. Zhao Ting and I have been good friends for many years. It is only natural for us to help each other. However, Wei Wei and I may have to stay at your house for a few days. At this point, Zhao Ting's family finally woke up and realized that Sun Yu and Wei Wei had arrived. It was not just a friendly greeting between neighbors. The 4 bags of instant noodles in their hands were obviously, there is a deeper meaning behind this. The Zhao Ting family, who had not eaten for several days, faced with this sudden food, an indescribable excitement and desire surged in my heart. Their hungry stomachs seemed to be screaming wildly, urging them to accept this gift. However, at this critical moment, Li Huan spoke first, with a hint of unnatural enthusiasm in her voice. Oh, Sun Yu, you are being too polite. We are neighbors, and we are a family. You can stay here as long as you want, just like at home. Li Huan knew very well that 4 bags of instant noodles were not all the food for Sun Yu and Wei Wei. The reason they chose to come at this time must be that they encountered some difficulties. She decided to keep the 2 of them stable first, and then look for an opportunity to get more food from them. So she continued to entertain Sun Yu and Wei Wei warmly, but she was thinking about her next plan in her mind. In this way, several people lived under the same roof with their own ulterior motives. After calming down, Zhao Jiangguo deliberately asked Sun Yu in a relaxed tone. Sun Yu, you were living a comfortable life with Biozi, why did you suddenly decide to run away? Was Biozi not treating you well? Zhao Jiangguo was obviously testing Sun Yu. He was worried that the conflict between Sun Yu and Biozi was too serious. It may cause unnecessary trouble. Although Biozi no longer has a gun, but Zhao Jiangguo's family was no match for him. However, Sun Yu had already thought of a countermeasure on the way here. He sighed, a helpless expression appeared on his face, and he spoke slowly. Alas, Uncle Zhao, you don't know that ever since Biozi was beaten up by Lin Feng, he has been thinking about revenge all day long. But his gun was taken away by Lin Feng. How can he be a match for Lin Feng? This morning, he dragged Qiangzi along to find Lin Feng to settle the score, and guess what happened? Qiangzi's legs were crippled from the beatings, and Biozi ran back alone in shame. I'm scared to death now. What if Lin Feng gets angry and comes to my house? I don't want to suffer the same misfortune as Biozi. Hearing this, Zhao Jiangguo's anger instantly rose. His injury was also caused by Lin Feng. He was well aware of Lin Feng's ruthless methods. However, he had to admit that the situation described by Sun Yu was indeed in line with Lin Feng's style. Lin Feng's actions were ruthless and he left no room for maneuver, which made Zhao Jiangguo feel angry and helpless. Although Sun Yu's words were meant to make excuses for himself, they also inadvertently helped Zhao Jiangguo's family out of trouble. At least in their opinion, Sun Yu did not leave because of a deep hatred with Biozi, but out of consideration for his own safety. As a result, Zhao Jiangguo's vigilance towards Sun Yu was slightly reduced. Seeing that the Zhao family didn't suspect anything, Zhao Ting quickly changed the subject and said, Ting Ting, your life is so difficult, why didn't you ask Lin Feng for help? Doesn't he have a lot of supplies stored at home? Sun Yu was asking this question even though he already knew the answer. Given Zhao Ting's current condition, who would help her? Even Sun Yu and Wei Wei had nowhere else to go, so they came to the Zhao family. However, Sun Yu's words were like rubbing salt into Zhao Ting's wounds. She sighed and said helplessly. Hey, Yu, don't mention it. I have looked for Lin Feng more than once, but not only did he not help us, he even hurt us. Didn't you see with your own eyes the last time he beat up my dad? Sun Yu gently took Zhao Ting's hand, trying to give her some comfort. She was also full of resentment towards Lin Feng, but she knew that she didn't dare to directly confront Lin Feng. So, she came up with a plan and planned to use Zhao Ting to be the first to take action. She said with feigned concern. I really didn't expect that Lin Feng would be so heartless. After all, you have been a couple living together for 5 years. Ting Ting, how about we think of a solution? If he doesn't help us, we can't let him live too comfortably. When Zhao Ting heard this, a hint of hesitation flashed in her eyes. Although she felt resentment towards Lin Feng, she was still a little afraid when she thought about taking the initiative to deal with him. However, Zhao Jiangguo, who was lying on the sofa, became interested. What he wants to do most now is to take revenge on Lin Feng. So he struggled to get up and asked. Sun Yu, do you have any good ideas to deal with Lin Feng? Sun Yu looked around and spoke in a deliberately low voice. Lin Feng has a fireplace at home and has stored a lot of fuel. And from his videos, we can see that there is plenty of food. At present, only a few of us and Biozi know this news. However, with our current strength, it is obviously impossible to break into Lin Feng's house. It would be better to leak this news and let everyone in the community know. As soon as she finished speaking, Zhao Jiangguo spoke excitedly. That's a good idea, I agree. The others did not hesitate for too long and nodded in agreement. After all, they have no better choice right now. However, at this moment, Zhao Ting suddenly started cursing at everyone. No. You are too shameless. How can you do this? Lin Feng, he will definitely forgive me. If you destroy him, what will I do in the future? Zhao Ting's words stunned everyone. They didn't expect that Zhao Ting still had such fantasies. Li Huan was even more furious. She slapped Zhao Ting in the face and cursed. You are still dreaming. Look in the mirror and see what you have become. Which man would be interested in you? When Sun Yu heard Li Huan's words, he felt panicked. She secretly shrank her neck, secretly thanking her lucky that no one noticed her abnormality. After all, it was all her fault that Zhou Tu ended up like this. It was she who encouraged Zhou Tu to have plastic surgery, and she also took a kickback of 200,000 yuan from it. Now seeing Zhou Tu's miserable condition, she couldn't help feeling a little guilty. Chapter 63. However, she quickly suppressed these emotions. She knew very well that the most important thing now was how to deal with Lin Feng. So she took Zhou Tu's hand again and tried to calm her down. Ting Ting, don't get excited. We are doing this for everyone's good. Lin Feng is unkind, so don't blame us for being unjust. Only by making him pay the price can we live a peaceful life. However, no matter how Sun Yu and others persuaded her, Zhao Ting still refused to expose Lin Feng's family living conditions. While Zhao Ting was not paying attention, Zhao Jiangguo turned his head slightly and winked at the other three women in the room. They immediately understood what he meant, and the three of them worked together to quietly tie up Zhao Ting and carried her to the bedroom. A conspiracy against Lin Feng began to brew. However, what happened in Zhao Ting's home was completely unknown to Lin Feng. Even if he really knew, I'm afraid he wouldn't care too much. He wished someone would come and cause trouble for him, to add some fun to his boring life. Today, the owner's group was unusually quiet, as if even the air had frozen. I think it was the thrilling fight in the underground parking lot last time that gave those neighbors who were lacking in food and clothing a temporary respite. The temperature remained at -40 degrees Celsius, and the biting cold seemed to be able to penetrate one's bone marrow. However, as time goes by, everyone seems to have gradually adapted to this extreme climate. They learned how to survive in the cold and how to find hope in difficult situations. There were more and more people in the parking lot. People gathered in groups of 3 or 4, or sat alone in a corner, thinking. In their eyes, there is confusion about the future and a desire to survive. Lin Feng, on the other hand, took Orlan out of the house. Orlan, this loyal companion, it is very alert and always pays attention to the movements around it. If it weren't for it, Lin Feng might not have been able to leave the house so easily. Seeing Lin Feng appear in the parking lot, the originally lively atmosphere instantly became quiet. Everyone consciously moved away. They had all heard about Lin Feng's ruthlessness and did not want to provoke him easily. Lin Feng didn't care about these. He was strolling around the parking lot with Orlan by his own hand. However, he soon discovered that something was wrong with the atmosphere in the parking lot. Everyone looked at each other with strange eyes, as if they were no longer neighbors who had lived together for many years, but had become enemies of each other. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a little emotional. It seems that I should try to walk the dog less often in the future to avoid causing unnecessary trouble. He knew his own strength and was not afraid of anyone in a head-on fight. He had a gun in his hand and Orlan, his loyal partner. However, he also knew that the real danger often came from the dark. If someone attacks him from behind, no matter how powerful he is, he will find it difficult to defend himself. As the saying goes, it is easy to dodge a spear but hard to guard against an arrow from the dark. Lin Feng decided to be more careful in the future. He originally raised Orlan just to relieve his boredom and didn't want to get involved in any danger. However, he soon discovered that since he showed off his wealth in the group, many people had been eyeing him. Lin Feng didn't care about the looks of these people. He sneered in his heart, if you have the guts, come and try to break into my safe house. He was not afraid of the threats from these people. Instead, he felt that life would be more interesting if some people came to visit. He has even begun to think about how to stage some big drama and let these people suffer the consequences of their own actions. Just when Lin Feng was about to take Orlan back, he suddenly saw 3 people, Zhang Qingming, Chu Hanyu and his wife, and Zhang Yading. He noticed that when Chu Hanyu and Zhang Yading saw him, their faces flushed and they lowered their heads as if feeling guilty. But Zhang Qingming was different. His eyes were full of anger when he looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't want to pay any attention to Zhang Qingming, but who knew that the other party would walk into the gun himself. Zhang Qingming shouted loudly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, stop right there. This voice immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the parking lot. They all gathered around, showing expressions of gloating. Obviously, they were all hoping that someone would cause trouble for Lin Feng so that they could reap the benefits. Zhang Qingming originally planned to get close to Lin Feng and resolve the family scandal privately. But when he saw Orlan at Lin Feng's feet, his heart tightened and he stopped. Taking advantage of the moment when Zhang Qingming was stunned, Chu Hanyu hurriedly spoke, "Honey, I'm a little tired, let's go home." Zhang Yading also quickly agreed. "Yeah, brother, I'm tired too, let's go back." The 2 women looked at each other knowingly, they both knew the deal between themselves and Lin Feng. They were afraid that Zhang Qingming would anger Lin Feng and cut off all contact with them. So while persuading Zhang Qingming, he tried his best to wink at Lin Feng and make expressions. Signaled to him not to be angry and to talk about it later. However, Zhang Qingming's anger was completely ignited by the persuasion of the 2 women. He thought that his wife and sister were both speaking in favor of the adulterer Lin Feng, which made him even more angry. He roared desperately. "Lin Feng, you must give me an explanation today. Don't think you can get rid of me with a box of instant noodles." Lin Feng raised an evil smile and asked, pretending to be ignorant. "Oh? What are you talking about?" Zhang Qingming became even angrier when he saw this. He looked around and found that everyone's eyes were on them. He had to lower his voice. You slept with my wife." Lin Feng pretended not to hear clearly and spoke loudly. "Hey? What? Are you talking about me sleeping with your wife? Chu Hanyu's affair with someone was exposed, and the target was Lin Feng. This news caused an uproar among the people. Chu Hanyu is a well-known beauty in the community. Her beauty and figure are mouth-watering. Now she is having an affair with Lin Feng? This makes everyone feel jealous and envious. Everyone was curious and followed him, but they didn't dare to follow too close, for fear that Jiang Qingming would get so angry that he would not recognize anyone and would bite anyone he saw. However, some people realized the crux of the problem, a box of instant noodles. In this era of material scarcity, owning a box of instant noodles is undoubtedly a sign of luxury. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted loudly in the crowd. Lin Feng, give me a box of instant noodles and I'll send my wife to your bed. As soon as the words were spoken, others also reacted. Lin Feng, my wife? No, my daughter is 18 this year. I'll trade her for half a box of instant noodles with you. Lin Feng, I'm a bachelor. My mother is 60 years old and still has her charm. Just give me 2 packets of instant noodles. Chapter 64. Hearing this, Lin Feng almost vomited blood on the spot. Damn, I'm 60 years old and I can't afford to enjoy it. However, Jiang Qingming thought that these people were all making fun of him. Under the watchful eyes of the public, the fact that he was cuckolded was made public. If he doesn't do something, how can he hold his head up? Thinking of this, Jiang Qingming rushed directly towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng, I'm going to kill you. However, Jiang Qingming was a gambler and his body had long been drained, so how could he be a match for Lin Feng? Lin Feng lightly raised his foot and kicked Jiang Qingming in the chest with his toes, sending him flying backwards 5 or 6 meters in an instant. Seeing this, Chu Hanyu and Zhang Yading hurried to Jiang Qingming, helped him up, and said, Honey, are you okay? On the other hand, Lin Feng turned around and walked towards home as if nothing had happened. Jiang Qingming was very angry after being kicked by the adulterer in public. He pointed at Lin Feng's back and wanted to curse him. Chu Hanyu winked at Zhang Yading, and the 2 women hurriedly stopped them. Brother, husband, don't be angry. We don't need to bother with him. Don't make yourself angry. Let's go home. It's cold outside. Jiang Qingming walked away angrily, mumbling to himself. He only dares to be aggressive verbally, but if he really wants to fight, would he dare? The 3 of them returned to their building, and Chu Hanyu suddenly said. Hubby, you guys go up first. There's no food at home. I'll go think of a solution. Jiang Qingming knew that Chu Hanyu was going to look for Lin Feng again, but what could he do? Anyway, Chu Hanyu has already been slept with by Lin Feng. It doesn't matter whether it's sleeping with her once or 10 times. He just likes gambling, but he is not stupid. Zhang Yading, who was standing by, took the opportunity to say. I'll accompany my sister-in-law. Jiang Qingming thought about it and nodded. Let Yading go with you. With her sister accompanying her, Chu Hanyu could not go to bed with Lin Feng. Chu Hanyu nodded and agreed. Jiang Qingming went upstairs by himself, while Chu Hanyu and the other girl walked back. They were silent all the way and the atmosphere was very awkward. What will happen if I go to Lin Feng? Both women knew it well. It would be fine if I went alone, but if 2 people went together, the key point is the relationship between sister-in-law and sister-in-law. How could I bear it? Or, sister-in-law, you can go back first. Zhang Yading suggested tentatively. She actually had her own little plan in mind. When Chu Hanyu heard this, he immediately frowned. Of course she didn't want to go back. Like Zhang Yading, she hoped to go to Lin Feng's place and enjoy herself. She was already tired of the dry instant noodles at home. Lin Feng said last time that we should go together this time. Chu Hanyu insisted, with a hint of determination in her eyes. Zhang Yading was slightly stunned. She didn't expect Chu Hanyu to become so open. She felt a little uneasy. After all, Chu Hanyu was much more beautiful than her, and she was worried that Lin Feng would dislike her because of this. So, she was cautious and decided to test Lin Feng's attitude first. Well, then you wait here for a moment. I'll go ask Lin Feng for his opinion. As Zhang Yading spoke, she walked alone into the passage leading to the basement of Lin Feng's villa. The corridor was so dark that she had to use her cell phone to illuminate the way. She sent a message to Lin Feng, then went to the door and knocked gently on the iron gate. The iron door creaked open automatically and Zhang Yading walked in. There was light inside, but Lin Feng's voice floated over coldly. Where's your sister-in-law? Didn't I tell you to come together? Zhang Yading's heart tightened and she quickly explained. My sister-in-law is a little embarrassed. I'll go first today, and my sister-in-law will take over tomorrow, okay? Lin Feng refused without hesitation. No. If you 2 are not together, then go back. Damn, you are too naive to play tricks on me. Zhang Yading had no choice but to withdraw and go find Chu Hanyu. After hearing Lin Feng's request, Chu Hanyu felt a little shy, but she also felt a little excited. She took Zhang Yading's hand and said. Come on, let's go together. This time, the iron door opened automatically without waiting for them to knock. Lin Feng saw clearly through the surveillance camera and he knew they were coming. After the 2 women entered, the iron door locked automatically. When they walked into the basement, they immediately felt a warmth and the bright lights made them feel like they were reborn. They couldn't help thinking, how nice it would be if they could live here forever. Let's eat first. Lin Feng's voice came. The 2 women sat at the table and began to enjoy their food. At first they were very reserved, but since yesterday till now, they have only had one regular meal and the rest of the time they could only eat instant noodles. Faced with the delicious food, they no longer cared about their reservedness and started eating with big mouthfuls. After a while, both women were full. Lin Feng even prepared fresh fruits for them, which touched them deeply. Lin Feng pointed at the bathroom and said, "You guys go take a shower first." Although the two women were a little embarrassed, they felt relieved when they thought about what was going to happen next. Not long after they entered, Lin Feng also came in. In the following time, from the bathroom to the living room, kitchen, and bedroom, traces of the three of them were left everywhere. This time, Chu Hanyu not only serves as the main attacker, but also has to guide Zhang Yading. However, even if the two of them joined forces, they could not withstand Lin Feng's fierce attack. In the end, they were defeated and lay on the bed with red faces, panting as they recalled the passionate moment just now. At the moment of leaving, Lin Feng prepared 10 bags of instant noodles for them. This was not because he was stingy, but because the two women had already received sufficient nutritional supplements from him. He didn't want the two women to bring back too much food and let Zhang Qingming eat too much. The two girls looked down at the instant noodles in the cups. Although the quantity was not much, their hearts were filled with gratitude. Under Lin Feng's protection, they tasted delicious food that they had never tasted before. This satisfaction has far exceeded their past expectations. They gradually understood, in this cruel world, being able to survive is the most important thing. As for Zhang Qingming, they can no longer care about him too much. They can only live one day at a time. When Zhang Qingming returned home, he saw the 10 packets of instant noodles in Chu Hanyu's hand, and his face instantly turned gloomy. He grabbed Chu Hanyu's collar angrily and questioned loudly. "What the hell is wrong with you? Why is there so little food this time? Tell me, did you hide it?" Chu Hanyu struggled to break free from Zhang Qingming's restraints, with a determined light flashing in her eyes. This was the first time she expressed her thoughts so firmly in front of Zhang Qingming. She retorted angrily. "Don't you know why? If you hadn't lost your temper with Lin Feng in the parking lot, why would he only give me 10 packets of instant noodles? You can ask Yading if I have hidden anything. Also, because of your behavior, Lin Feng no longer wants to touch me. From now on, I won't even have these 10 packs of instant noodles." Chapter 65. Seeing this, Zhang Yading quickly stood on Chu Hanyu's side. "Yes, brother, you have wronged my sister-in-law. Lin Feng only gave these 10 packets of instant noodles because my sister-in-law begged him. Otherwise, we would have had to wait to starve." The two women formed a united front and used facts and logic to refute Zhang Qingming's unreasonable accusations. Although their words were harsh, every word made sense and Zhang Qingming was unable to refute them. He was frightened to death, and the anger in his heart gradually subsided. Zhang Qingming was extremely anxious. He grabbed Chu Hanyu's hand and spoke urgently. "Hanyu, go find Lin Feng and tell him that I agree to you having S*X with him, as long as he can give me something to eat. You must take good care of him, and I must not be deprived of food. Do you understand?" When Chu Hanyu and Zhang Yading heard these words, the contempt in their eyes became even stronger. They really couldn't imagine that a grown man would be so servile as to let his wife sleep with another man just to survive. Chu Hanyu did not answer Zhang Qingming, but turned around and went back to the bedroom silently. Seeing this, Zhang Yading sighed and tried to persuade Zhang Qingming. "Brother, please stop making things difficult for sister-in-law. If Lin Feng doesn't like her, what can she, a woman, do?" However, Zhang Qingming seemed to be possessed by a demon, muttering to himself. "No, I can't just wait and starve to death. I have to go and beg him in person, beg him to sleep with my wife." After saying that, he stood up and left home without looking back. Chu Hanyu looked at Zhang Qingming's departing back, feeling mixed emotions. She felt that she had nothing to be ashamed of anymore. After all, her affair with Lin Feng was already known by the neighbors. So, she sent a message to Lin Feng, telling him that Zhang Qingming had come to see him. Then he lay down on the bed tiredly and fell into a deep sleep soon. After receiving Chu Hanyu's message, Lin Feng went to the back door and waited for Zhang Qingming to arrive. He didn't have any weapons with him, which were completely useless against a good-for-nothing like Zhang Qingming. Night had fallen, and although the parking lot was dim, there were still neighbors walking around in groups of 3 or 4. They either gathered together to chat or smoked alone in a corner. "Look, isn't that Zhang Qingming? Why does he look like this? It's really him. Seeing how he's in a hurry, he should be going to Lin Feng's house. Now we are going to have a good show. It must be that his wife was slept with by Lin Feng, and he came to settle the score." As Zhang Qingming approached, more and more neighbors were attracted. They gathered towards Lin Feng's house, ready to watch the farce that was about to unfold. However, when Zhang Qingming walked in front of Lin Feng, something unexpected happened. His legs suddenly went weak and he knelt straight in front of Lin Feng. This scene stunned the surrounding neighbors. They stared at the scene in disbelief with their eyes wide open. "Lin Feng, I beg you, you can't not sleep with my wife. If you don't sleep with her, I'll starve to death." As soon as these words came out, there were exclamations and discussions all around. Everyone was stunned by the scene before them. They had never seen such an absurd and bizarre scene. It's not played like this in TV dramas. How can anyone beg someone to sleep with his wife? Lin Feng looked at Zhang Qingming kneeling in front of him, and a complex emotion surged in his heart. He felt angry and sad at the same time. He clenched his fists tightly, trying to control his emotions. "Zhang Qingming, you are so shameless. You can do such a thing for your own selfish interests. You are not worthy of being a human being." Zhang Qingming's face turned pale when he heard what Lin Feng said. He knew that he had completely lost his dignity and personality, but he still held on to a glimmer of hope, hoping to convince Lin Feng. Lin Feng, I know I was wrong. I apologize to you for what happened just now. I beg you, just help me this time. I promise I won't do this again. Lin Feng's face was stern, and his eyes revealed a hint of disdain. He looked quietly at Jiang Qingming who was kneeling in front of him, and spoke in a cold and firm voice. Jiang Qingming, I really feel sorry for Chu Hanyu. How could she be so blind as to find a shameless man like you? Go back, I won't help you. However, Jiang Qingming does not seem to be planning to give up. He used both hands and struggled to crawl to Lin Feng's side, tightly grasping Lin Feng's trouser legs, almost crying out loud. Lin Feng, please, as long as you are willing to forgive me, I am willing to give you my sister. She is still a virgin, you will definitely like her. Chun'er, your sister, I have slept with your sister a long time ago. Hearing this, Lin Feng frowned and a hint of disgust flashed in his eyes. He kicked Jiang Qingming hard, knocking him to the ground, and shouted angrily. Get out of here now. If you don't leave, don't blame me for being rude. Jiang Qingming was kicked so hard by Lin Feng that he was almost dizzy, but he still seemed to be unwilling to give up. He struggled to get up and continued to beg. However, Lin Feng had already lost his patience with Jiang Qingming. He originally thought that Jiang Qingming would at least be a responsible man. If I come to settle the score with him in person, maybe it will arouse a little interest in him. But the man in front of him was like a dog wagging its tail to beg for mercy, kneeling before him humbly. Lin Feng really couldn't muster any interest in this kind of loser. He didn't look at Jiang Qingming again, turned around and walked into the house. Jiang Qingming's face was full of unwillingness. He banged hard on Lin Feng's door, his voice full of despair and pleading. Lin Feng. I beg you, please open the door. I will personally bring Chu Hanyu to you, as long as you are willing to forgive me. At this time, a burly man walked over. He looked at Jiang Qingming with a lewd smile on his face, and greed flashed in his eyes. Jiang Qingming, your wife is pretty. Why don't you send her to me? I'll exchange her for food. Jiang Qingming heard this, and a hint of hesitation flashed in his eyes. He looked back at the man and asked tentatively. How much food can you give me? The man pointed a finger and said contemptuously. A pack of instant noodles. As soon as he finished speaking, another voice rang out. A pack of instant noodles? Then I'll trade with you. Jiang Qingming felt panicky as he looked at the men around him who were eyeing him covetously. He knew that Chu Hanyu was famous for her beauty in the community, and he also knew that many men were drooling over her. However, for Lin Feng, who was always generous, a pack of instant noodles was a trivial exchange. It was just like a speck of dust and could not attract his attention at all. Chapter 66. Jiang Qingming glared at the crowd angrily, his voice filled with endless anger and unwillingness, and he cursed loudly. Get lost. Get the hell out of here. You shameless people, you actually want to exchange my wife for a pack of instant noodles, it's just wishful thinking. Stop dreaming. The burly man looked at Jiang Qingming's angry and desperate expression. A disdainful sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said contemptuously. Tisk, it's already this late, and you still treat your wife like a baby. Let's go, let's all go. I think Lin Feng doesn't want your wife anymore, so who else would care about her? Just don't come to us for help then. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd dispersed. Some of them laughed at Jiang Qingming's stupidity, while others felt sympathy for Chu Hanyu's fate. What was already an absurd farce ended abruptly in an unhappy way. Sitting on the soft and comfortable sofa, Lin Feng quietly stared at the monitoring screen in front of him. Every subtle movement outside the door was clearly presented in front of his eyes. However, he seemed unusually calm in the face of all the noise and chaos, as if everything outside the door had nothing to do with him. He believed that as long as he didn't nod, Chu Hanyu would never fall into anyone's hands. This matter quickly spread throughout the entire community. Now everyone was in a state of having nothing to do, and this kind of gossip was of course the best topic of conversation. Of course, this also includes the mother Zhang Limei, who realized the crisis. That night, he sent a message to find Lin Feng, but after sending more than a dozen messages, but it was like a stone falling into the sea, and no reply was received. Lin Feng sat on the sofa, and his cell phone kept vibrating. He glanced at the screen and saw a flood of friend requests. He has lost count of how many women have wanted to add him as a friend. College students, young women, internet celebrities, and even a woman who called herself a third-tier female star, all sent him requests. Lin Feng gently slid across the screen, browsing through the avatars and nicknames one by one. The contents of their requests were similar, all hoping to exchange their bodies for food. He screened and left contact information for those who were decent looking. As for those who did not suit his eyes, he chose to ignore them without hesitation. However, he did not ask any of the women to come over. He knew that moderation was crucial during this special period. He must not allow himself to fall into a state of excessive debauchery, and must pay attention to protecting his body. Just when Lin Feng was about to put away his phone, an unexpected friend request popped up. He was stunned for a moment, it turned out to be sent by a man. Why would a man add me? I'm not Brokeback Mountain. Out of curiosity, he still clicked on the other party's note. All that was written on it was Chairman of Donghua Real Estate, Zhang Jiuzheng. Donghua Real Estate? Lin Feng's heart moved. This is Haining City's leading enterprise with assets exceeding 10 billion yuan. He could never have imagined that such a big boss would add him as a friend. Why did he come to me? Is it for food as well? Lin Feng's heart was full of curiosity. He decided to accept the friend request and see what Zhang Jiusheng wanted to say. Soon, Zhang Jiusheng sent a voice message. Hello, Mr. Lin. I'm Zhang Jiusheng. I believe you have heard of me. I don't like beating around the bush, so I'll just tell you straight away. As long as you provide me with enough food to last until the cold wave ends, I am willing to give you half of the shares of Donghua real estate for free after the cold wave ends. After hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. This big boss was really generous. He took out shares worth hundreds of billions so easily. However, Lin Feng had no interest in this. He shook his head and replied. Chairman Zhang, I admire your style and courage. However, I am not interested in your proposal at all. I will not give my food to anyone easily. Even if the cold wave can eventually subside temporarily, in this disaster, among the industries that have been hit hardest, real estate is undoubtedly the first to bear the brunt. It is foreseeable that this once glorious industry is likely to collapse completely in this catastrophe. Zhang Jiusheng, the tycoon of Donghua real estate, now holds stocks that are no longer a symbol of wealth. They are more like a pile of waste paper and have no value at all. However, for Zhang Jiusheng, the bigger problem is that even if the cold wave passes and the fog dissipates, the devastated land and the withered and dying plants will foreshadow the terrible famine that is to come. In this context, food and clean water become more precious than any wealth. Money? In Zhang Jiashen's opinion, it has lost its former magic and has become useless. Despite this, Zhang Jiusheng did not seem discouraged, as if he had anticipated that Lin Feng would reject his proposal. So he continued. Mr. Lin, I understand that you may not be interested in tens of billions of assets. So, how about we try another way? You know, I've never been short of money, and my greatest love, like most men's, is women. I heard that you also like beautiful women. I happen to have a Japanese woman here. I haven't touched her yet. You can take a look at her first to see if she suits your taste. Not long after, Lin Feng's cell phone rang and a new message appeared on the screen. He clicked on it and saw that the attachments contained several photos. The women in the photos were breathtakingly beautiful. She looked to be in her early 20s, with a pure face, long hair like a waterfall, and eyes like a pool of clear spring water. Although her height cannot be seen from the photo, her body proportions are very well proportioned. She has a slender waist, but plump and round breasts and buttocks. She is undoubtedly a rare beauty. Immediately afterwards, news about Zhang Jiusheng came again. Brother Lin Feng, what do you think? My vision is pretty good, right? She has received professional training, but she is still a novice. Well, I will use this woman in exchange for food. What do you think of this proposal? Lin Feng looked at the woman in the photo, and his heart was indeed shaken. But when he thought of her nationality, the slight hesitation in his heart immediately disappeared. Women who live a simple life shouldn't appear in movies. Chairman Zhang, you should keep it for yourself. I have no interest in women from the enemy country. After hearing Lin Feng's answer, Zhang Jiusheng was not discouraged. He spoke again. Brother Lin Feng, don't be angry. You are doing a good deed for the people. Don't worry, no matter how you treat her, I won't have any objection. Well, to show my sincerity, I will let her go to you now. After you enjoy it, we can talk about the deal. Chapter 66. Zhang Qingming glared at the crowd angrily, his voice filled with endless anger and unwillingness, and he cursed loudly. Get lost. Get the hell out of here. You shameless people, you actually want to exchange my wife for a pack of instant noodles, it's just wishful thinking. Stop dreaming. The burly man looked at Zhang Qingming's angry and desperate expression. A disdainful sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said contemptuously. Tisk, it's already this late, and you still treat your wife like a baby. Let's go, let's all go. I think Lin Feng doesn't want your wife anymore, so who else would care about her? Just don't come to us for help then. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd dispersed. Some of them laughed at Zhang Qingming's stupidity, while others felt sympathy for Chu Hanyu's fate. What was already an absurd farce ended abruptly in an unhappy way. Sitting on the soft and comfortable sofa, Lin Feng quietly stared at the monitoring screen in front of him. Every subtle movement outside the door was clearly presented in front of his eyes. However, he seemed unusually calm in the face of all the noise and chaos, as if everything outside the door had nothing to do with him. He believed that as long as he didn't nod, Chu Hanyu would never fall into anyone's hands. This matter quickly spread throughout the entire community. Now everyone was in a state of having nothing to do, and this kind of gossip was of course the best topic of conversation. Of course, this also includes the mother Zhang Limei, who realized the crisis. That night, he sent a message to find Lin Feng, but after sending more than a dozen messages, but it was like a stone falling into the sea, and no reply was received. Lin Feng sat on the sofa, and his cell phone kept vibrating. He glanced at the screen and saw a flood of friend requests. He has lost count of how many women have wanted to add him as a friend. College students, young women, internet celebrities, and even a woman who called herself a third-tier female star, all sent him requests. Lin Feng gently slid across the screen, browsing through the avatars and nicknames one by one. The contents of their requests were similar, all hoping to exchange their bodies for food. He screened and left contact information for those who were decent looking. As for those who did not suit his eyes, he chose to ignore them without hesitation. However, he did not ask any of the women to come over. He knew that moderation was crucial during this special period. He must not allow himself to fall into a state of excessive debauchery, and must pay attention to protecting his body. Just when Lin Feng was about to put away his phone, an unexpected friend request popped up. He was stunned for a moment. It turned out to be sent by a man. Why would a man add me? I'm not Brokeback Mountain. Out of curiosity, he still clicked on the other party's note. All that was written on it was Chairman of Donghua Real Estate, Zhang Jiuzheng. Donghua Real Estate? Lin Feng's heart moved. This is Haining City's leading enterprise with assets exceeding 10 billion yuan. He could never have imagined that such a big boss would add him as a friend. Why did he come to me? Is it for food as well? Lin Feng's heart was full of curiosity. He decided to accept the friend request and see what Zhang Jiuzheng wanted to say. Soon, Zhang Jiuzheng sent a voice message. Hello, Mr. Lin. I'm Zhang Jiuzheng. I believe you have heard of me. I don't like beating around the bush, so I'll just tell you straight away. As long as you provide me with enough food to last until the cold wave ends, I am willing to give you half of the shares of Donghua Real Estate for free after the cold wave ends. After hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. This big boss was really generous. He took out shares worth hundreds of billions so easily. However, Lin Feng had no interest in this. He shook his head and replied. Chairman Zhang, I admire your style and courage. However, I am not interested in your proposal at all. I will not give my food to anyone easily. Even if the cold wave can eventually subside temporarily, in this disaster, among the industries that have been hit hardest, real estate is undoubtedly the first to bear the brunt. It is foreseeable that this once glorious industry is likely to collapse completely in this catastrophe. Zhang Jiuzheng, the tycoon of Donghua Real Estate, now holds stocks that are no longer a symbol of wealth. They are more like a pile of waste paper and have no value at all. However, for Zhang Jiuzheng, the bigger problem is that even if the cold wave passes and the fog dissipates, the devastated land and the withered and dying plants will foreshadow the terrible famine that is to come. In this context, food and clean water become more precious than any wealth. Money? In Zhang Jiashan's opinion, it has lost its former magic and has become useless. Despite this, Zhang Jiuzheng did not seem discouraged, as if he had anticipated that Lin Feng would reject his proposal. So he continued. Mr. Lin, I understand that you may not be interested in tens of billions of assets. So, how about we try another way? You know, I've never been short of money, and my greatest love, like most men's, is women. I heard that you also like beautiful women. I happen to have a Japanese woman here. I haven't touched her yet. You can take a look at her first to see if she suits your taste. Not long after, Lin Feng's cell phone rang and a new message appeared on the screen. He clicked on it and saw that the attachments contained several photos. The women in the photos were breathtakingly beautiful. She looked to be in her early 20s, with a pure face, long hair like a waterfall, and eyes like a pool of clear spring water. Although her height cannot be seen from the photo, her body proportions are very well proportioned. She has a slender waist, but plump and round breasts and buttocks. She is undoubtedly a rare beauty. Immediately afterwards, news about Zhang Jiuzheng came again. Brother Lin Feng, what do you think? My vision is pretty good, right? She has received professional training, but she is still a novice. Well, I will use this woman in exchange for food. What do you think of this proposal? Lin Feng looked at the woman in the photo, and his heart was indeed shaken. But when he thought of her nationality, the slight hesitation in his heart immediately disappeared. Women who live a simple life shouldn't appear in movies. Chairman Zhang, you should keep it for yourself. I have no interest in women from the enemy country. After hearing Lin Feng's answer, Zhang Jiuzheng was not discouraged. He spoke again. Brother Lin Feng, don't be angry. You are doing a good deed for the people. Don't worry, no matter how you treat her, I won't have any objection. Well, to show my sincerity, I will let her go to you now. After you enjoy it, we can talk about the deal. Chapter 68. She carefully tested the water temperature with her fingertips, and when she found that it was indeed warm and safe water, she couldn't help feeling excited. However, in addition to her excitement, she also felt a little shocked. In this environment where supplies are scarce and survival is difficult, Lin Feng can actually provide hot water for bathing. This is simply crazy. She couldn't help but wonder how Lin Feng did all this. But at this moment, she didn't want to worry too much about these issues, but just enjoyed the hot water. Not taking a shower for several days in a row made her feel extremely uncomfortable and disgusted. Now, she could finally take a good bath, which made her feel extremely comfortable and relaxed. After washing for an hour, Kawashima Hunako slowly walked out of the bathroom. Her figure was looming in the mist, as if she was a goddess walking out of a dream. Her long hair was wet and stuck to her skin, making her look even more charming. Lin Feng sat on the sofa with a sharp gaze. He did not prepare clothes for her like he did for other women. Kawashima Hunako could only walk out wrapped in a bath towel, shyly and uncomfortably. Although the bath towel could cover most of her body, it could not hide her proud figure. The slender legs are exposed, as white as jade, and glowing with an alluring luster under the light. However, Lin Feng had no intention of appreciating the beautiful scenery. He suddenly stood up and rushed towards Kawashima Hunako like lightning. For a moment, the air seemed to freeze, with only the breathing of the two people echoing. Lin Feng stretched out his fist and hit Kawashima Hunako in the face with the force of thunder. There was a flash of surprise in her eyes. She didn't expect that Lin Feng, a seemingly ordinary man, would have such agile skills. The swift and precise attack caught her off guard. However, Kawashima Onako was no ordinary person. She quickly adjusted her mindset and gently moved her head like catkins in the wind, cleverly avoiding Lin Feng's attack. There was a hint of provocation in her eyes, and then she immediately launched a counterattack and fought with Lin Feng. Having received strict training since childhood, she has absolute confidence in her fighting skills and firmly believes that she can defeat Lin Feng. After his rebirth, Lin Feng's body seemed to have been transformed, and he was extremely strong, definitely at the world's top level. Although Kawashima Onako is not weak, she is far inferior to Lin Feng. The following battle made Kawashima Onako more and more frightened. Although Lin Feng's fighting was chaotic and completely without any rules, but his power and accuracy are amazing. Each of his moves hits the vital point. This left Kawashima Onako exhausted from dealing with the situation and she had to keep dodging. 5 minutes passed and Kawashima Onako began to lose strength. Her movements became slower and her breathing quickened. She was kicked on her plump butt by Lin Feng by mistake. The severe pain made her almost unbearable and she let out a sharp scream. She lost her balance and was about to fall to the ground. Seeing this, Lin Feng swiftly grabbed her bath towel. However, due to excessive force, the bath towel was pulled off. Kawashima Onako screamed in shock, but it was too late to react. With a thump, she fell firmly to the ground, her body completely exposed to the air. Her face was filled with shame, anger, and fear, while Lin Feng stood aside, staring at her with cold eyes. Kawashima Onako was lying on the ground, her snow-white skin looking particularly dazzling under the light. She was filled with shame and anger, and wanted to get up and escape from this embarrassing situation immediately. Yet the body was paralyzed by pain and humiliation. Lin Feng's cold eyes swept over her, but there was no mercy at all. He approached step by step, and every step seemed to step on Kawashima Onako's heart, making her feel extremely pressured. What do you want to do? Lin Feng did not answer, but just stretched out a hand. Kawashima Onako instinctively wanted to dodge, but her body seemed to be fixed and unable to move. Lin Feng gently pinched her chin, forcing her to raise her head and look at him. You lose. There was a flash of reluctance and anger in Kawashima Onako's eyes, but she knew that she was powerless to change the situation. She could only endure Lin Feng's gaze and touch and humiliation, her heart filled with endless pain and despair. You, what are you? Hearing this, Lin Feng laughed loudly, his laughter revealing a bit of unruliness and arrogance. He looked directly into Kawashima Onako's eyes and spoke slowly. Haha, I haven't even asked you who you are, but you're asking me instead. Judging from your reaction and skills, you are probably not an ordinary person. Kawashima Onako felt a little uncomfortable when Lin Feng looked at her. She felt a little weak in her heart, but she still managed to speak. I'm just a fighting enthusiast, is that not okay? Yes, of course. Lin Feng smiled and nodded, but his eyes became deeper. His hands gently circled Kawashima Osako's neck. Her slender neck was as white as a swan, and he seemed unable to let it go. Kawashima Onako felt the warmth from Lin Feng's fingers, and goosebumps appeared in her heart. She felt an inexplicable pressure. At this moment, a dagger appeared in Lin Feng's hand. The dagger flashed with a cold light, as if it would cut through the air at any time. When Kawashima Onako saw this, her face turned pale instantly. She felt an unprecedented danger. Lin Feng looked at the dagger in his hand, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Lin Feng swung the dagger in his hand without hesitation, leaving a deep wound on Kawashima Onako's delicate arm. Bright red blood instantly oozed out of the wound, slowly flowed down her arm, and dyed the bath towel red. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, and the dagger in his hand gently pressed against Kawashima Onako's porcelain-smooth cheek. You really don't want me to add a few scars to such a beautiful face, do you? Kawashima Onako felt the sharpness of the dagger and the coldness in Lin Feng's eyes, and her heart shuddered. She knew that she had lost. Whether in terms of skills or ruthlessness, she was no match for Lin Feng. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her inner fear, and spoke with a slightly trembling voice. Bandage my wound and I will tell you everything. However, Lin Feng snorted coldly, and the dagger exerted a little more pressure on Kawashima Onako's cheek. Are you qualified to negotiate with me? Yes or no? Kawashima Onako felt a stinging pain on her cheek and felt a sense of panic in her heart. She knew that if she continued to provoke Lin Feng, the consequences would be disastrous. Chapter 69. So she said quickly. My name is Kawashima Onako, I'm from Japan, and I'm a professional killer. I was hired by Zhang Jisheng to come to China, and you weren't my original target. But because of the cold wave, Zhang Jisheng and I were blocked here, so he temporarily changed his target and asked me to kill you and seize your supplies. Hearing this, Lin Feng's eyes became even colder. Zhang Jisheng, this BD, I knew things were not that simple. He actually dared to hire a killer to kill me. He must be tired of living. Lin Feng did not take away the dagger and continued speaking. Let's put Zhang Jiashen's matter aside for now. Now we have to talk about what's going on between us. When Kawashima Onako heard this, her heart tightened. She understood that Lin Feng would not let her go easily, but she still wanted to try her best to fight for a chance of survival. This matter really has nothing to do with me. Zhang Jisheng sent me here. If you want revenge, you should go find him. Lin Feng sneered and said. Do you think I will believe your lies? As a killer, you should have realized it long ago. Today, you must pay the price for your actions. After saying that, Lin Feng became ruthless and slashed the dagger in his hand towards Kawashima Onako's neck. Seeing this, Kawashima Onako hurriedly blocked it with her hands and said. No, 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 I'm still a virgin. As long as you let me go, I can give you my first time. Besides, I have been trained in serving men since I was a child. I guarantee that I will make you feel like you are in heaven. At this time, the dagger had already cut Kawashima Unako's palm, and blood was dripping from between her fingers onto the ground, staining the area red. Japanese girl. You can feel it. Then Lin Feng threw a roll of gauze to Kawashima Unako and asked her to bandage it herself. A hearty battle was inevitable. I have to say that Kawashima Unako's kung fu is really good, even Sun Yu, that green TBCH, can't compare to her. Kawashima Unako really put in a lot of effort, and the skills she had learned were perfectly demonstrated at this moment. She was sure that Lin Feng had no weapons with him at the moment, and she thought she had taken the initiative. Just when she thought Lin Feng had completely fallen into her gentle trap, while immersed in her tenderness and sweetness, she suddenly decided to attack. She endured the severe pain in her hands and stretched out her hands towards Lin Feng's neck, trying to grab him and make him unable to move. However, at this critical moment, Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes. There was a cold light flashing in his eyes, like a sharp knife. Kawashima Unako didn't see clearly how a dagger suddenly appeared in his hand. Shua! The sound of the dagger cutting through the air was sharp and piercing. It was like a flash of lightning, instantly cutting through Kawashima Unako's neck. Blood gushed out instantly, staining her hands and clothes red. Kawashima Unako covered her throat with both hands, blood seeped out from between her fingers, and her body began to twitch constantly. Her eyes were filled with fear and despair. She could never have imagined that I was actually defeated by such a seemingly ordinary man. As for Lin Feng, his eyes were filled with indifference and determination. He looked at Kawashima Unako's body which was gradually losing its life, without a single ripple in his heart. He knew that this was his mission and something he had to do. However, under the double stimulation, Lin Feng's body responded. He felt a strong impulse rising in his heart, as if it was about to burst through his body. He closed his eyes tightly and tried hard to control his emotions. However, the urge became stronger and stronger, and finally he could not bear it anymore. A huge downpour. Damn it, you are too young to play dirty tricks on me. Lin Feng's cold eyes swept over Kawashima Unako. Even though she was extremely beautiful, she was like a top beauty, but in his heart, he did not feel any regret. Keep a killer around? Lin Feng would never take this kind of risk. He knew very well that associating with such a woman was like seeking the skin of a tiger, and he could fall into an irretrievable situation at any time. What's more, she came from that abominable little country. Lin Feng had just finished cleaning the blood off his body when his cell phone rang at an inopportune time. He frowned, anger rising in his heart. Damn it, this BD actually dared to send me a message. He picked up the phone and saw that the message was indeed from Zhang Jiusheng. Mr. Lin, how does a Japanese girl taste? Lin Feng sneered. He knew that Zhang Jiusheng was testing him to see if he had been killed by Kawashima Unako. A strong murderous intent surged in Lin Feng's heart. Zhang Jiusheng must die. Afterwards, Lin Feng took a photo of Kawashima Unako lying in a pool of blood and sent it to Zhang Jiusheng. It tastes good, but the skills are a little lacking. After Zhang Jiusheng received the news, his whole body seemed to be soaked in cold sweat and his face turned pale. He didn't expect that Lin Feng could defeat the Japanese killer he hired at a high price so easily. This strength shocked and frightened him. However, as a giant in the business world and a great leader, Zhang Jiusheng quickly adjusted his mood. Brother Lin Feng, are you going to start a war with me? Do you know that I am not the only killer around me? I also brought 2 bodyguards with me. They were all former mercenaries. They are very powerful. One of them can kill 4 or 5 adult men with his bare hands. If weapons are used, one person can easily defeat 10. So, I hope you can think twice before you act, and don't do something irreparable because of your youthful impetuosity. Although Zhang Jiusheng was admonishing on the surface, his heart was filled with anger and unwillingness. He originally planned to let Kawashima Unako kill Lin Feng, but he didn't expect the result would be like this. He didn't even get to taste Kawashima Unako before Lin Feng got there first, which made him feel very angry. Lin Feng sat quietly on the sofa, looking coldly at the threatening message sent by Zhang Jiusheng on his mobile phone. A sarcastic smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and a feeling of disdain surged in his heart. So what if you have mercenaries protecting you? You can come into my house. Lin Feng said lightly, his tone revealing a sense of confidence and disdain. He was not afraid of Zhang Jiashan's bodyguards because he knew that his residence was well guarded and not easy to break into. Do you think I will confront you head on? Haha, you are wrong. I will let you experience what despair is. So, Lin Feng replied. Don't be angry, young man. I advise you not to go out unless necessary. After receiving Lin Feng's reply, Zhang Jiusheng angrily threw his phone on the table. Chapter 70. Zhang Jiusheng never expected that Lin Feng would be so arrogant and domineering. Not only did he ignore his threats, but he also dared to provoke him in return. This Lin Feng is so arrogant. He slammed the table angrily and decided to take more drastic and extreme measures to deal with Lin Feng, to make him taste what true despair and helplessness were. Mr. Zhang. At this moment, 6 burly, expressionless bodyguards looked at him at the same time, waiting for his orders. Obviously, Zhang Jiusheng did not tell Lin Feng the truth. There were 6 bodyguards around him, not 2. He frowned slightly and looked at the beautiful woman sitting beside him. The woman was about 24 or 25 years old, with a pretty face and a slender figure. The assassin I sent failed. Zhang Jiusheng said lightly, with a hint of helplessness and disappointment in his voice. The beautiful woman raised her head and looked at Zhang Jiusheng and said, "Didn't you say he was lustful? That Japanese woman was so beautiful, but she failed too." Zhang Jiusheng smiled bitterly. "Yeah, I didn't expect this. This kid Lin Feng is really beyond my expectations. Even Xiao Ri's killer can't deal with him." He rubbed his temples, frowned, and looked very distressed and tired. "Mr. Zhang, what should we do next? I think we should just attack directly. I don't believe that we can't deal with him alone." Zhang Jiusheng laughed. "Break the door? Do you think Lin Feng is that easy to deal with? Several groups of people have been there before us, and what was the result? Although your fighting ability is strong, the door of Lin Feng's house must have been specially modified and cannot be easily broken through. Let's think of other ways." The bodyguards looked at each other, speechless. The beautiful woman spoke. "I can try to seduce him to open the door, but maybe it will fail because the woman he lives with is not interested." Zhang Jiusheng shook his head. "No, that guy is not a fool. His villa must have been renovated, and the security measures are very thorough. If it were me, after spending so much money on the renovation, I would definitely install surveillance cameras. Although there is a power outage now, we can prepare our own generators and use diesel and gasoline, etc., and it will definitely be no problem to last for 10 days or half a month. So, as long as we stand at the door, even if we don't make any noise, we won't be able to hide it from the kid inside." Everyone fell silent upon hearing this. Indeed, when it comes to fighting and even killing, these bodyguards are professionals. But they are not good at work that requires thinking like the current one. So what to do? At this time, Zhang Jiusheng, who had always been smart, was at a loss. The next morning, Sun Yu took Zhao Ting's phone and spoke in Zhao Ting's tone. All of Lin Feng's previous photos and videos were sent to the community group. She knew what kind of uproar these photos and videos would cause. "My dear neighbors, I can't describe how I feel right now. It turns out that there are people living such a happy life around us. This kind of selfish behavior is simply unbearable. These videos were taken by Lin Feng's family in the past few days. Think about it, what kind of life have we been living recently, and what kind of life has he been living? Do you think this comparison is fair?" The group immediately exploded, and everyone expressed their desire for an explanation. "Although he is my ex-husband, I must expose him and let everyone see his true face." Sun Yu's words pushed everyone's anger to a climax. At this moment, people in the owners group are in a state of doing nothing. They are just discussing in the group when they have nothing to do. The videos and pictures posted by Sun Yu immediately attracted everyone's attention. So, the neighbors clicked on the video and started watching it. When everyone saw the warm and comfortable life scenes in the video, they were shocked and almost went crazy. "Oh my god, you're feeding steak to the dog. I haven't eaten for several days. Isn't this a waste of food? Did you see that? The lights in his house were brightly lit, and they were not controlled by the voltage. Don't be so naive, this video was obviously filmed in the past. How could this happen now?" Some people have questioned that they cannot believe that there are people in this world who can live so comfortably. However, Sun Yu answered firmly. "I can assure you that these videos were shot recently. Lin Feng's family has already prepared all kinds of supplies, whether it's food or fuel. So the life he is living now is like heaven." Zhao Jiangguo also echoed. "Yes, I can prove it. When his house was renovated, a lot of steel plates were used to reinforce the house. Later, he bought a lot of things and stored them. I believe I am not the only one who saw it. Have you all forgotten it?" Zhao Jiangguo's words evoked the memories of many people. They began to recall the scene in which they saw Lin Feng's family busy moving supplies. "I remember now that Lin Feng brought things home in big and small trucks every day. Now it seems that he must be stockpiling supplies. If it's true as everyone says, Lin Feng should have known about the coming of this disaster in advance. FK, this guy is such a jerk. He knew about this in advance but didn't tell anyone. You can't judge a person by his appearance. How can he be so selfish?" Everyone was filled with righteous indignation and blamed Lin Feng for all the suffering they were going through. They felt that their lives were so miserable because of Lin Feng's selfishness and indifference. However, they did not consider at all that even if Lin Feng told them that the end of the world was coming, would they believe it? Would they take positive measures to deal with it? They will just say that Lin Feng is a lunatic. Of course, they don't think about that. They just felt that Lin Feng owed them. Someone said immediately. "Now is not the time to talk about that. He should take out the resources and share them with everyone. Yes, why should he enjoy the happiness alone while we suffer here? This is not fair. Let him offer his house to others, and everyone can take turns going in to keep warm. Damn, I think we should just throw him outside and let him freeze to death." All the neighbors were furious. They couldn't stand this unfair situation. They feel that since they are all neighbors, they should share the good and the bad. Why can Lin Feng live so comfortably while they have to struggle to survive in the cold wind? No, if we have to die, we have to die together. They decided to settle accounts with Lin Feng and make him pay for their suffering. Chapter 71. Bio Zi and Wang Bo also saw the video in the group. They were tortured by Lin Feng many times. Therefore, they are the people who hate Lin Feng the most in the entire community. But they never expected that Lin Feng's life would be so comfortable. Of course, some people are also worried about Lin Feng. Sun Ziyi, Chu Hanyu, Zhang Yading and Zhang Li may have all gained benefits from Lin Feng. He is also someone who wants to rely on Lin Feng for his living, so of course he doesn't want Lin Feng to come into any harm. Among this group of people, the most excited one was Zhang Jiuzheng. He was worried about the opportunity to deal with Lin Feng, but he could not find a suitable way. This time, seeing the reactions of the owners in the group, he seemed to see the dawn of hope. A smug smile appeared on his face, and he was secretly thinking about how to take advantage of this opportunity to defeat Lin Feng in one fell swoop. Lin Feng sat at the dining table, leisurely savoring his breakfast, while group chat messages on his phone flooded in like a tide. He was constantly tagged in comments filled with moral blackmail and intimidation. Lin Feng, you coward, come out and give us an explanation. Are you going to hand over the supplies or not? If you continue to play dumb, don't blame us for being rude. Lin Feng gently put down his chopsticks, a mocking sneer appeared on his lips. I want to see how rude you can be. At this time, Zhang Yi was watching the group chat and replied with a smile. Get lost, who the hell do you think you are? This sentence seemed to have ignited the fuse of the group chat, and instantly curses broke out, and all kinds of dirty words poured towards Lin Feng like a tide. However, Lin Feng seemed to be out of the matter and continued to eat breakfast without any concern. He no longer felt any guilt, and he was already prepared to deal with these people. Lin Feng, you are great, let's wait and see. Humph, I think this guy won't cry until he sees the coffin, so don't waste your words on him. Yes, just make him kneel down in front of us and beg for mercy. The verbal abuse in the group chat gradually died down, replaced by an eerie silence. Lin Feng knew that someone must have taken the lead in gathering in private and discussing how to deal with him. He took a deep breath, and a hint of nervousness and excitement flashed in his eyes. Although he knew that his home was an impregnable fortress, it would be a lie to say that he was not nervous at all facing the attack of hundreds of people. However, that feeling of excitement burned in his heart like a flame, and he had long been eager to teach those ungrateful neighbors a lesson himself. A white light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. He knew that it would be easy to deal with these people. As long as they dare to come, a water pipe is enough to make them miserable. However, Lin Feng shook his head, with a playful smile on his face. What he wanted was not this kind of simple victory. These people must be tortured. Then Lin Feng made dozens of stink smoke bombs and gasoline incendiary bottles. Just as Lin Feng expected, Zhang Jiuzheng, this scheming guy, he actually succeeded in winning over almost every homeowner except him, with the number of people reaching as high as 500, and even the group chat was filled to capacity. Among these 500 people, there are Biozi, Wang Bo, Sun Yu, Zhao Jiangguo and others who have a deep hatred for Lin Feng. The appearance of Biozi and Wang Bo made everyone present feel a chill down their spines. They knew very well that these two people were bullies in the community and many people had suffered a lot at their hands. At this moment, they stood on Zhang Jiashan's side, which undoubtedly added a bit of uncertainty to the impending storm. Zhang Jiuzheng spoke first. I know there may be some grudges between you, but now, these are no longer important. What lies before us is a more pressing issue, food. It goes without saying that if we don't get timely food supplies, we will slowly run out of energy and eventually starve to death in this disaster. Biozi followed closely behind and echoed. Boss Zhang is absolutely right. We are all starving, but Lin Feng is living like an emperor at home. We can't just sit there and do nothing. We must unite and force him to hand over those supplies. Wang Bo also echoed. That's right. Now we should put aside our personal grudges and target Lin Feng. We must break into his house and take back the supplies that originally belonged to everyone. In fact, Biozi and Wang Bo both knew in their hearts that they had suffered losses at the hands of Lin Feng many times and had long been afraid of Lin Feng's strength and methods. They knew that Lin Feng not only had guns, but also had very complete defense facilities at home. However, the situation is different now. They have the support of 500 people. With such a force, can they not attack Lin Feng's home? In their opinion, with so many people serving as cannon fodder, even if Lin Feng had more weapons, it would be impossible for him to kill all of them. The instigation of these three people was immediately responded to by others. After they saw the living conditions of Lin Feng's family, the fire of jealousy burned fiercely, and their hearts were filled with hatred and jealousy towards Lin Feng. They longed to replace Lin Feng and enjoy his current life. Let's go, everyone. Bring your kitchen knives, rolling pins, and other tools that can be used as weapons. Yes, let's gather at the underground parking lot and go find Lin Feng together to ask him to hand over all the stored supplies. The crowd became more and more excited, and they wished they could eat Lin Feng alive. Among them, Zhao Jiangguo shouted the loudest. However, among this boiling crowd, there were a few people who remained calm. Song Wei, Sun Ziyi, and others did not follow the crowd. They silently watched the messages in the group without expressing any opinions. However, they were all worried about Lin Feng in their hearts. And those who had a good relationship with Lin Feng on weekdays, now threw those favors to the wind. All they have in their eyes is the desire to survive, and they are willing to abandon all ethics and morals in order to survive. In this moment of greed and madness, no one is willing to think about the friendship and favors that once existed. Only the desire for material things and hatred towards Lin Feng filled everyone's heart. They were like a group of out-of-control wild beasts, ready to launch a frenzied attack on Lin Feng. Lin Feng picked up the phone and heard Song Wei's anxious voice. He said without hesitation that he would come over to help. However, Lin Feng politely declined his kindness. Song Wei's heroic act made Lin Feng feel complicated and he felt a little guilty. After all, he slept with Zhang Limei, which made him feel somewhat guilty when facing Song Wei. Chapter 72. At this time, Lin Feng was sitting at the table, wiping his pistol attentively. Lin Feng was already very familiar with the use of guns and did not feel unfamiliar at all. However, he also knew that the number of bullets was limited. Now, there are only 10 bullets left in the pistol, which makes him cherish them even more. He didn't want to use this gun easily unless it was absolutely necessary. So, Lin Feng carefully put the pistol back into the space in case of emergency. Then he took out the crossbow and the bow and arrow. Thousands of arrows were neatly stacked next to the observation port, enough to kill everyone. Just then, Sun Ziyi sent a message. Those neighbors are going to come to your house to look for you. Lin Feng replied indifferently. Well, I already know that. Sun Ziyi sat on the sofa at home and frowned after seeing Lin Feng's calm reply. She curled up in the corner of the sofa, hugging the pillow tightly in her arms. There are 500 people in the group. According to my estimation, at least 200 to 300 people will go there. You'd better be careful. In her opinion, facing so many neighbors, the most sensible thing to do is to hand over some supplies to calm everyone's anger. Otherwise, no matter how powerful a person is, it is impossible for him to fight against so many people. There are hundreds of people, let alone a door, it would be no problem to even tear down the house. Lin Feng said without explaining to her. I'll be fine. Just take care of yourself. Remember, no matter what happens outside, don't come out. I'll make them pay. Sun Ziyi frowned. She didn't understand where Lin Feng got the courage from. He was indifferent in front of hundreds of people. This was no joke. Once his house was broken into, those crazy neighbors would definitely kill him. Is he really that powerful? Is his fighting ability extraordinary? As a doctor, Sun Ziyi is quite knowledgeable. I've seen too much of men's stuff. Thinking of this, Sun Ziyi's face turned red. A man's strength is not just one-sided. She suddenly realized that her thoughts had gone off track. Quickly adjust your mindset and refocus on the problem at hand. She wrote cautiously in the message. Why don't you come to my house and hide there before they notice your presence? If Lin Feng had not built that sturdy safe house, Sun Ziyi's suggestion would undoubtedly be the safest option. But now, facing those neighbors who might come, will Lin Feng feel scared? Not only was he not afraid, but he seemed to be looking forward to the coming storm. Lin Feng quickly replied to Sun Ziyi's message, his tone relaxed and confident. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Once we've dealt with them, let's have dinner together. After seeing this message, Sun Ziyi knew that it would be useless for her to persuade him. She could only go to the back door and carefully observe the situation on Lin Feng's side through the peephole. As a doctor, she knew the fragility and preciousness of life, so once she found that Lin Feng was in any danger, she would rush out to rescue him without hesitation and do everything she could to ensure his safety. However, the reminder messages Lin Feng received were not only from Sun Ziyi, but also multiple messages popped up on his mobile phone screen. Chu Hanyu, Zhang Yading, and Sun Yu all sent messages to Lin Feng, reminding him to be careful. Lin Feng sat on the sofa, his eyes calmly scanning the news. He knew in his heart that these women's concern for him was not genuine. They were just passers-by in his life and tools to relieve his loneliness. Of course, he doesn't know yet that the fuse of this storm actually came from Sun Yu. Lin Feng did not reply to anyone's message. He did not need their sympathy and concern. At the same time, he was at Zhang Jiashan's house. Ha ha ha. Zhang Jiasheng laughed out loud, as if the whole world was under his control. These stupid neighbors are so easy to fool. Before I even opened my mouth, they jumped into the trap one by one. However, he didn't know that all this was just a stopgap measure that everyone was forced to take in order to survive. Food, something that seems insignificant on weekdays, has become their biggest desire at this moment. At this time, Li Meiying came over. She was wearing a thick down jacket, but it still couldn't hide her proud figure. She gently kneaded Zhang Jiashan's shoulders, her voice gentle and sweet. Boss Zhang, you are really awesome. That guy is no match for you. Seeing this, the bodyguards around also gathered over. Their eyes sparkled with envy and admiration for Li Meiying, as if she was already the goddess in their hearts. Hey, madam, please take a rest. I'll give Director Zhang a massage. Li Meiying frowned slightly, but did not get angry. She just gently pushed him away and kept a proper distance. Seeing this, another bodyguard hurriedly pulled out a chair next to him and said respectfully to Li Meiying. Madam, please take a seat and don't tire yourself out. Li Meiying smiled slightly and sat down gracefully, as if all this was within her expectations. Zhang Jiasheng couldn't help feeling jealous when he saw the bodyguards around him being so attentive to Li Meiying. He glared at the bodyguards and signaled them to stand down. However, the bodyguards did not seem to notice Zhang Jiashan's dissatisfaction and continued to surround Li Meiying, showing their courtesy. Zhang Jiashan's face became more and more ugly. He stood up suddenly, pushed away the bodyguard beside him, and strode towards Li Meiying. Get out of here, all of you. The bodyguards were startled by his sudden outburst and took a few steps back. Li Meiying also frowned slightly and looked at Zhang Jiasheng, not understanding why he was so angry. Boss Zhang, what's wrong with you? However, Zhang Jiasheng did not answer her, as he knew very well what these bodyguards were thinking. If it were in the past, he would have driven them away without hesitation, after all, he could find someone else with money. But at this moment, the situation he faced was very different. He looked around and saw the bodyguards who used to obey him. At this moment, all eyes were focused on Li Meiying, and their eyes were full of greed and desire. Zhang Jiasheng couldn't help but feel helpless and angry, but he knew that now was not the time to lose his temper. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the anger in his heart. He understood that these were the only people he could use. If I drive them away again, I will be isolated and helpless. What's more, these bodyguards coveted Li Meiying's beauty. It's just human nature. In this materialistic world, beauty itself is a kind of power that can attract countless gazes and desires. Thinking of this, Zhang Jiusheng couldn't help but smile bitterly. Chapter 73. He thought to himself that even if they really dared to attack Li Meiying, he would have no way to stop them. After all, his situation is already very difficult and he needs to rely on these bodyguards to protect himself. He could only try to stay calm and not let things get any worse. Lin Feng was ready and was just waiting for those stupid neighbors to come to his door, but he had been waiting for more than 2 hours and there was no movement at all. Could it be that they have some conspiracy? It shouldn't be that serious. There are hundreds of people against me. Do I need to plot? Jingle. Just as Lin Feng was lost in thought, suddenly, a crisp message alert sound broke the silence. He quickly picked up his phone and saw a message from a stranger on the screen. The avatar was a stunningly beautiful woman, although Lin Feng did not know her. But what is certain is that she also lives in this community. Looking back, Lin Feng had accepted her friend request because of her beauty, but the two had never had any communication. At this moment, looking at this sudden message, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a little curious. He clicked on the message lightly and saw it displayed on the screen. I'm Zhang Jiashan's mistress, my name is Li Meiying. I have some important information to tell you, I wonder if you are interested. What's going on? A trick or a betrayal? No matter what Li Meiying's motive was, Lin Feng didn't care. He knew very well that as long as he stayed at home and did not go out easily, no one could pose a threat to him. What information? Tell me. At this moment, Zhang Jiusheng and Biozi and a group of people were plotting a plan to deal with Lin Feng in the living room. Although their voices were low, Li Meiying could hear them clearly. She was well aware of the strength of Zhang Jiusheng and others, but she did not hold much hope that they could successfully deal with Lin Feng. Some things cannot be easily solved by more people. Therefore, Li Meiying decided to reveal the plan of Zhang Jiusheng and others to Lin Feng. She believed that as long as she was not discovered by Zhang Jiusheng, she could gain certain benefits no matter who won or lost in the end. So, she carefully edited the information and prepared to send the intelligence to Lin Feng. Li Meiying smiled slightly, with a bit of teasing and cunning, and she replied quickly. Mr. Lin, you are not trying to get something for nothing and take the information from me for nothing, right? If you do that, I will suffer a great loss. Lin Feng smiled lightly, already knowing Li Meiying's intention. He naturally knew that at this time of food shortage, the value of intelligence was often linked to food. And for him, food is the most abundant thing. The supplies stored in the space are enough for him to squander for several lifetimes. So he replied without hesitation. A box of instant noodles in exchange for your information. After receiving the news, Li Meiying's eyes flashed with surprise. She didn't expect Lin Feng to agree so readily, and give her a box of instant noodles. In this age where food is as valuable as gold, such a move is enough to illustrate how rich Lin Feng's reserves are. She secretly admired in her heart, it seems that Sun Yu was right, Lin Feng is indeed a hidden character. However, she was also a person who knew her limits and did not take the opportunity to ask for too much. She replied with a smile. Since Mr. Lin is so straightforward, I won't beat around the bush. Don't worry, the information is absolutely true and reliable. Besides, after you win, I will take the initiative to come and accompany you. After that, she sent a few more photos. She looks sexy and charming in the photo, which is very attractive. Moreover, she exudes a kind of charm from head to toe, just like her name. She is totally a modern vixen, naturally charming. Lin Feng looked at the photo and couldn't help swallowing. He had to admit that the old man Zhang Jiusheng was indeed lucky to have found a stunning beauty like Li Meiying. Immediately afterwards, Li Meiying sent another message. Mr. Lin, please rest assured. Zhang Jiusheng, that old guy, has been impotent for 5 years. I am just his lover in name only, accompanying him to various events. So, you don't have to worry about me causing you any trouble. I'm very clean. Damn, this woman has been holding it in for too long. In the past, Lin Feng would not even dare to think about a beauty like Li Meiying. However, at this moment, Li Meiying seemed to be within reach, so close that it seemed as if she could be embraced by just reaching out her hand. This huge change caused Lin Feng to feel an indescribable impulse in his heart. Should we keep her in captivity? This thought flashed through Lin Feng's mind. He had never thought that he would have such an idea. This was the first time since the end of the world that he had such a strong possessiveness towards a woman. It can be seen how great Li Meiying's charm is, making people fall for her unknowingly. However, Lin Feng shook his head violently. He knew that now was not the time to think about these things, and business was more important. He took a deep breath, calmed his inner turmoil, and then sent a message to Li Meiying. Now you can tell me the information. Li Meiying checked the time. There was still 1 hour left before the time Zhang Jiusheng and the others agreed to meet. She did not dare to delay and quickly told Lin Feng the information, hoping that he could be prepared for defense. They decided to act at 2 AM and split into 2 groups. The larger group will attack your house, another group attacked Sun Ziyi's house. Their plan was very thorough. Even if they couldn't open your door, they could use Sun Ziyi to threaten you. When Lin Feng heard the news, he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. These people are really cunning. They even thought of using Sun Ziyi to threaten him. However, This also shows how much they value and fear him. Great. If Li Meiying hadn't reminded me, I wouldn't have thought of this. Lin Feng secretly rejoiced in his heart, and at the same time he admired Li Meiying's attentiveness and keenness. However, the next question made Lin Feng fall into deep thought. How to ensure Sun Ziyi's safety? The safest way is to let Sun Ziyi come to his house, but in this way, once Sun Ziyi's house is breached, she will have to live in Lin Feng's house from now on. Lin Feng has no idea of a keeping Sun Ziyi in captivity for the time being. He doesn't want to give up the entire forest for a tree. He has been looking for a way to protect Sun Ziyi without affecting her normal life. However, time was running out and Lin Feng racked his brains but could not think of any good solution. He couldn't help but feel irritated and anxious. Damn it, at worst I'll just do it. Afterwards, Lin Feng sent a message in the owner's group. Anyone who dares to approach Sun Ziyi's house will be killed without mercy. Chapter 74. Immediately afterwards, Sun Ziyi sent an inquiry message, and she obviously also noticed something unusual. Lin Feng was afraid that she would worry, so he did not tell her the truth, but just asked her to stay at home and feel at ease. He would protect her no matter what. However, it was not only Sun Ziyi who saw it. But at the same time, Wang Bo, who was sitting on the sofa in Zhang Jiashan's living room, also noticed this sudden news. Pa! A crisp sound interrupted everyone's conversation. Wang Bo slammed the coffee table and threw his phone on it. The tea splashed and the glass shook slightly, as if expressing his anger and dissatisfaction. Zhang Jiasheng was originally deep in thought, and the sudden noise made him frown. He raised his head and looked at Wang Bo with dissatisfaction, with majesty and dissatisfaction flashing in his eyes. After all, this is his territory, and Wang Bo's actions are undoubtedly a provocation to him. Wang Bo also noticed Zhang Jiashan's dissatisfaction, and his expression changed slightly. He quickly picked up the phone and handed it to Zhang Jiasheng. He tried to explain, with a hint of nervousness and urgency in his voice. Mr. Zhang, don't be angry. Take a look at this. I don't know who leaked our plan. Zhang Jiasheng took the phone and looked at the information on the screen, his brows furrowed more and more. Although their plan was not top secret, if someone revealed it to Lin Feng, it would mean that a rift had appeared within the team. This kind of disunity is a big taboo in their actions. If someone secretly does something bad at the critical moment, the entire operation may fail. After reading the message, Zhang Jiashan's eyes turned cold. He glanced at everyone in the room, his tone questioning and threatening. Tell me, who among us is most likely to be a traitor? As soon as the words fell, the room exploded. Everyone started talking at once to defend themselves, and the noise was so loud that it was difficult to hear what they were saying. As Zhang Jiasheng listened to the chaotic noise, the anger in his heart grew stronger. He slammed the coffee table and shouted harshly. Look at what you all look like. It's like a vegetable market. The voices of the crowd gradually died down, leaving only Zhang Jiashan's cold gaze sweeping across everyone's faces. He finally fixed his gaze on Biozi, pointed at him and spoke. You go first. When Biozi was called, he immediately sat up straight, cleared his throat, and began to express his opinions. Boss Zhang, I think only someone who has a close relationship with Lin Feng would tip him off. For people like me and Wang Bo, we wish he would die sooner. As soon as Biozi finished speaking, everyone nodded in agreement, thinking that his analysis made sense. However, as Lin Feng's former father-in-law, Zhao Jiangguo has the closest relationship with Lin Feng. Zhao Jiangguo also realized this, and his face turned pale instantly. He looked around nervously and found that everyone's eyes were on him. He knew that at this moment, he had become the focus of everyone's suspicion. Zhao Jiangguo saw that everyone's suspicious eyes were focused on him, so he waved his hands hastily. No. No. It wasn't me. Believe me. All the injuries on my body were caused by that guy Lin Feng. How could I possibly tip him off? What good will it do me? If you don't believe me, you can ask Sun Yu. She knows. In order to expose the situation at Lin Feng's home, I even put my own daughter under house arrest. How could I possibly betray everyone? When everyone heard what Zhao Jiangguo said, they turned their eyes to Sun Yu. Sun Yu felt panic in her heart, her brain racing, trying to find the right words to respond. She wasn't sure if Zhao Jiangguo was the traitor, but apart from him, she and Lin Feng were indeed the closest. Moreover, now she is on the same side as Biozi and others, and no longer has to live under someone else's roof and in Zhao Ting's house. Thinking of this, Sun Yu calmed down and spoke. I think Zhao Jiangguo is most likely the traitor. After all, his daughter is still thinking about remarrying Lin Feng, and he could have tipped off Lin Feng in order to pave the way for his daughter. We can't ignore this possibility just because of temporary trust. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone started talking. Some people think that Sun Yu's analysis makes sense. After all, the relationship between Zhao Jiangguo's daughter and Lin Feng is indeed complicated. Everyone was there to watch the fun, no one spoke, as long as they were not suspected. Zhao Jiangguo's face turned pale, his eyes widened, and he pointed at Sun Yu and cursed loudly. You stinky BCH, I took you in with good intentions and provided you with a shelter, but now you turn against me and frame me. I will fight you. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Jiangguo raised his fist and punched Sun Yu fiercely. However, in the eyes of everyone, his behavior was more like a clown directing and acting in his own show. Not only did his actions fail to clear him of any suspicion, but they also further solidified the fact that he was a traitor. Just when Zhao Jiangguo's fist was about to land on Sun Yu, Zhang Jiasheng suddenly attacked. He grabbed the back of Zhao Jiangguo's collar and swung him hard, throwing Zhao Jiangguo more than 2 meters away like a rag. Zhao Jiangguo fell heavily to the ground, groaning in pain. Although Zhang Jiusheng is old, with grey hair and wrinkles on his face, he is still very agile. It was easy for him to deal with a disabled old man like Zhao Jiangguo without any effort. Zhang Jiusheng glared at Zhao Jiangguo and shouted angrily. Damn it, he dares to act wild in my house, beat him up. Seeing this, everyone followed suit, condemning and spitting on Zhao Jiangguo. This whole scene was secretly filmed by Li Meiying in the bedroom and sent to Lin Feng. Seeing Zhao Jiangguo being beaten, Lin Feng was a little scared. He was really afraid that Zhang Jiusheng and his gang would beat him to death. In that case, he would have no chance to humiliate Zhao Jiangguo. At this time, Zhao Jiangguo had lost several teeth and was spitting blood from his mouth. He couldn't help but shout. Don't hit me. If you can let me go, I will. I will give my daughter to you to play with. Since the cold wave began, everyone has been in a tense state. Even if there are women in their family, they are too lazy to touch them. Everyone stopped and looked at each other, obviously angered by what Zhao Jiangguo said. Domestic flowers don't have the fragrance of wild flowers. However, a sneer appeared in Sun Yu's heart. She knew exactly what Zhao Ting looked like, with one breast larger than the other. The butt is like a square stone, with no aesthetic appeal at all. Sun Yu thought to himself that if those men really saw Zhao Ting's true appearance, they would probably be scared to the point of impotence. Chapter 75. However, Sun Yu did not say these words. The blame has already been put on Zhao Jiangguo, so it's best for me not to say anything about him. Anyway, all this has nothing to do with her. She just needs to stand aside quietly and watch how this farce ends. However, these men have been aroused by Zhao Jiangguo's proposal. The moral bottom line in their hearts has been destroyed by desire. Biozi was even more direct. He stared at Zhao Jiangguo with his eyes wide open, a greedy smile on his face. Zhao Jiangguo, you are giving us benefits. However, we are not so easy to fool. You have to prove your sincerity first. Zhao Jiangguo groaned in pain, but when he heard Biozi's words, a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. He struggled to stand up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and spoke in a trembling voice. I can take you to my house first and call my daughter out. Sun Yu sneered in her heart. She knew Zhao Ting was hiding at home and shivering. If we are found by these men, the consequences will be disastrous. However, she did not say anything to stop it. Instead, she quietly stepped aside and prepared to watch the show. Everyone followed Zhao Jiangguo to his home, and Zhao Ting was so scared that she hid in the bedroom and dared not come out. Zhao Jiangguo kicked the door open fiercely and pulled Zhao Ting up from the bed. Zhao Ting looked at the men in front of her in horror. She knew she had nowhere to escape. She looked at Sun Yu for help, but Sun Yu coldly avoided her gaze. Biozi and others rushed forward impatiently and surrounded Zhao Ting. They stared at her greedily, as if they were looking at prey. However, when they saw her face and figure clearly, they were all stunned, as if struck by lightning. Biozi was the first to break the silence. He frowned, covered his mouth, and said with disgust. Ugh, holy shit, this is the first time I've seen such a disgusting woman. The others showed the same expression, and they all began to retch as if they smelled something unpleasant. They fled from Zhao Ting's bedroom, and in the process of escaping, Biozi also did not forget to kick Zhao Ting hard, as if this could eliminate the disgust in his heart. The farce ended so abruptly and they returned to Zhang Jiashan's home in embarrassment. It was already early in the morning. Zhang Jiusheng was sitting on the sofa. He was the first to speak. There is still half an hour until the agreed time. Our first priority is to obtain the supplies in Lin Feng's hands. With food, we won't have to worry about not having women. Biozi hesitated for a moment and asked. But Lin Feng already knows our plan, so he will definitely be on guard. Should we still proceed as planned? A sinister smile appeared on Zhang Jiashan's lips. He patted Biozi's shoulder gently and said. Humph, we are using an open strategy. Even if he finds out, what can he do? As the saying goes, there is strength in numbers. I don't believe he can withstand the siege of hundreds of us. Notify everyone to gather in the underground parking lot. Half an hour later, we will launch a general attack on Lin Feng and Sun Ziyi's homes. Biozi nodded, a hint of ruthlessness flashing in his eyes. Lin Feng sat quietly in the house, his eyes slightly closed. Suddenly, he opened his eyes suddenly. Here I come. Then, from the back door came the sound of various tools knocking. Accompanied by people's excited shouts, it was like a surging wave rushing towards this side. Lin Feng knew that the hundreds of people led by Zhang Jiusheng had gathered and were heading towards his home. He quickly turned on the surveillance camera and saw a sea of a euro human figures appearing on the screen, so densely packed that he couldn't count their number. Everyone held various tools in their hands, some holding kitchen knives, some holding sticks, some people even held frying pans in their hands, which looked quite funny, but more importantly, it revealed a solemn and murderous aura. Walking in the front were two middle-aged men in black suits. They walked steadily and had sharp eyes, and were obviously well-trained professional bodyguards. Lin Feng recognized at a glance that these two people should be Zhang Jiashan's personal bodyguards, responsible for protecting his safety. As the crowd gradually approached, Lin Feng could see clearly that many people were holding umbrellas in their hands, obviously to prevent him from splashing water on them. Seeing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but sneer. What good are these umbrellas? I'm using a high-pressure water gun for car washes, which can blow your umbrellas away in an instant, leaving you with nowhere to hide. Soon, there was a rapid and violent knock on the door in the corridor, shaking the surrounding walls as if they were trembling. Boom! 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 The knocks on the door were accompanied by waves of arrogant shouting. Lin Feng, open the door quickly. Hand over the food, or we will kill you. Don't waste time. Once we rush in, not even a trace of you will be left. Lin Feng sat at home, staring calmly at the surveillance screen. He did not see Biozi and others, nor did he find any trace of Zhang Ju's Hung. These people knocked on the door so arrogantly, obviously they were misled and used as pawns to test his background. Lin Feng curled up the corner of his mouth into a sneer. He had no intention of showing mercy to these people's ignorance and greed. He has abundant energy reserves, enough to cope with any challenge. So he pressed the high-voltage switch without hesitation. A blinding flash of lightning flashed through the air, and the young man who was BG on the door just now was instantly struck by the current. His body was shaking violently and his face showed an expression of extreme pain. Due to the narrow passage and the crowded crowd, the people behind him were not spared and were all affected by the electric current. They screamed in terror and tried to escape from this horrible place, but the speed of the electric current was faster than their reaction. Ah, damn it, help, there's electricity. Electric currents raged through their bodies, and their bodies seemed to be tightly bound by invisible chains, unable to move. The air was filled with a nauseating burnt smell. The current lasted for more than a minute before Lin Feng cut off the power supply. It is impossible to count how many people fell to the ground, it was pitch black, and their lives or deaths were unknown. The air was suffocating with the smell of roasting meat and burning clothes. The others looked at the scene in horror, their hearts filled with fear and despair. They never expected that they would face such a death threat, let alone witness such a horrific scene. Some women couldn't stand the bloody scene and screamed, bent over and vomited. But their stomachs were empty and they could only vomit out some acid. Panic spread among the crowd, and some people began to want to escape from this horrible place. However, they soon discovered that their retreat had been blocked by Biozi and Zhang Jiashan's bodyguards. Want to run? Not that easy. Biozi held a machete in his hand and smiled grimly. He stood at the entrance of the corridor, blocking everyone's way. His purpose was very clear, which was to make these people serve as Lin Feng's cannon fodder. In their view, the more these people died, the better, so that the number of people who had to share food supplies would be reduced. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.